Inside the Birds is back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inside the Birds pregame live, presented by DraftKings. We're here, of course, at Goose Island Brewhouse in Fishtown. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. Joining us today, the usual suspects. We have a man who just turned 46 years young.
Yes.
Former Pro Bowl tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles, Trey Thomas.
No gray. Where's the gray, man?
Yeah, I don't gray. I sleep well. I'm well rested. I take care of myself.
Unfortunately, he has a lot of gray.
Does that include the manscaping? No gray?
Yeah, no gray.
Oh,
no
hey,
gray.
hey.
We'll get to that later.
This is a family show.
No undercarriage grays.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
There you go. There you go. Of course, with us as always, Greg Cosell, the godfather of Tape Breakdown. How
I
are you,
used to
Greg?
be 46, and I just can't remember when that
Which
was.
decade was
Is
that?
that 46 years ago you were
Yeah,
46?
I can't remember when that was.
You're celebrating 46 for the 46th
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Of course, absolutely. Well, it may seem like it's been a while since 46 years since the Eagles got their first win. Perhaps they will get one today. They are embarking today on a 5-game streak against teams that are all above 500, and that starts actually, strangely, today in Cleveland against the Browns, who are 6-3. The Browns haven't been to the playoffs since 2003, when their quarterback was none other than Kelly Holcomb.
I would
You guys
believe
remember
that?
Kelly Holcomb?
absolutely. Very
Unbelievable.
well.
Wow, that's been a long time ago.
He had a great playoff game, I remember. It might have been a loss.
A ton of yards at
wasn't against
Pittsburgh.
It was
at
against
Pittsburgh, a ton
He had
of yards.
a great
right?
playoff
Correct.
game.
I think you were
That's the game.
46 years old when that.
I was, and I believe that Bruce Arians might have been
The OC?
the OC or the quarterback coach for the Browns then, because he loved Kelly Holcomb.
Wow.
I was still playing then.
You were still playing. That's what, 2003. You were just coming into your own.
Yeah.
Was that your first Pro Bowl year, I believe? 03?
Possibly.
All right. You have literally just hit the delete button. That's what I love about Trey Thomas. He doesn't even know. Pro Bowl? Who won Pro Bowl? All right, so for perspective, the Eagles are playing a 6-3 team today. They themselves are only 3-5-1. We all know that. We've got a lot to talk about. So they've got a streak of 5 straight games against teams with winning records, and yet the Eagles themselves sit at 2 games under 500. Well, I guess, how does that work with the tie? You're still two games under 500. If you're 3-5-1.
They still are 2 games under 500.
Sort of.
Yeah, and look, they have a lead. Technically in the NFC least, but of the 5 teams that you're talking about, Jeff, this is the worst of that group. It's a very winnable game in weather conditions. The only game today that's going to have bad weather. It's going to rain the entire game. Not a lot of wind, though. The previous 2 games at Cleveland had really bad wind, but they've got a run game. So does Cleveland, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, we're going to break this game down. Obviously, Tropical Storm Kaplan there with the update on the weather.
I want to see the radar. I'm a little confused here. I need to see the radar.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I don't do that. No, you don't have the
I don't get paid enough.
Get the green screen behind.
Yeah, exactly right.
Please, if you're at home right now, give us a retweet, a share, whatever platform you're watching us on. Just help make this show the most watched Eagles pregame show in the United States, in the planet, in the universe. Also, we are still giving away a chance to win an autographed Carson Wentz jersey. We'll have the information on that later in the show, so make sure you're watching if you want to win an autographed Carson Wentz jersey, courtesy of our friends at Sky Motors. All right, let's start with some positive news. It's going to be like the 3rd, I believe, game in a row, Adam, where the Eagles start to get guys back, and we're not talking about who's not coming back. They still have some injuries. But the big news today, obviously, Isaac Seumalo back to play left guard.
Yeah, he will be their left guard, Jeff. And this is now, they have 4 of their starters back. They're still going to miss Brandon Brooks this season, the right guard. But getting him back from his, I believe it was a severe MCL sprain for Seumalo. He's not played since that Rams game in week 2 when a bunch of players got hurt in that game. And also a bunch of players got hurt in the next game against the Bengals. But they've got him back. They've got an offensive line. These guys have been together a long time. They should start rolling, Jeff, on that offensive line. We've talked each week about how bad the pass protection has been. But talking to the Browns this week, they did say one thing they do well in the offensive line is they block well for the run game. So we'll see how they do this week.
All right, well, I believe it'll be the 8th iteration of an Eagles offensive line in 9 games.
I think this is 9th right now because with
Is it
Opeta
9? I
last
thought there
week.
was one game where
Opeta
one
did play
stretch.
Yeah,
last week.
Opeta started
Yeah.
left guard last week, so I think that was 8. So
Yeah.
now, with bringing Isaac back, I think you putting that's the 9th offensive line that this group has had to deal with.
Right, but Opeta, didn't he start in the Dallas game? He
did.
started a
He
game
did.
before
He
that,
did.
though.
Yeah, but then you had.
But maybe Peters
But you
wasn't
had
back
Nate.
yet.
I think you had one of them where.
So
it
who's
was,
going to start at right guard today?
there's so many.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That we don't know.
That's been the question
That
right
we
now
don't
because
know.
it's been up
What
in the air.
iteration will it be?
Yes,
Very
exactly.
nice word, by the way.
Yeah.
That's an SAT word.
Yeah,
I
They
believe.
paid
very
me for
nice.
that. That's
Yeah,
all I
yeah,
get.
yeah. So we don't know who's going to start at right
No,
guard?
that one we don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, you've seen them all. You've seen them all. Who do you think is their best choice at right guard? Is it Herbig?
Yeah, I think Herbig right now, because going into the season, I thought it would be Matt Pryor just because of how he did during the past couple games. But it seems like his technique has gone downhill this year. He's taken a couple steps back with his technique. So I think Nate Herbig would probably be the guy that you throw in there. I know a lot of people kept saying, possibly Jack Driscoll, but I don't know how much of a how realistic that is, just because he's been doing a lot of tackle.
Yeah.
But who knows with this offensive line, the way they've been doing things.
My sense is Herbig, and this does play off the weather because I think the run game will probably be a bigger factor than the pass game. I think Herbig, and Trey can speak to this too, but I think Herbig has shown some issues in pass pro, but I think he's a better run blocker. That's certainly his background coming out of Stanford. He was a run blocker because they ran a pro-style run game. And so that would be my sense, that Herbig would be the best choice today at right guard.
Well, whether it's Herbig, Pryor, I agree with you. I think it'll probably be that if he can play. The bigger and better news from this is 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen are going to start today, and it's not been like that for much of the year for the Eagles.
Correct. Yeah, by the way, Herbig, he's off the injury report with that finger injury. What happened was it swelled, and they were concerned with his ability to grip. He only played 1 snap on offense last week. So
No, special teams, wasn't it?
or special teams, sorry.
Right.
Yes, he was active, though. He did play, but he's ready to go today. And again, with this injury report, which we'll get into, as you've been saying all along, they need a net positive situation. This is certainly net positive.
Go ahead, Trey. You look confused.
He
Yeah,
missed the game because his fingers swelled.
He did play, but his ability to grip. That was
Oh, boy.
on special teams.
He missed the game because his fingers swelled as an offensive lineman.
couldn't grab.
Couldn't grab.
Wear a glove, right? Wear a cast.
I
don't
mean,
know.
what do we? You know what?
Knee brace?
What do you mean? Yes, finger brace, finger tape, double tape. Everybody buddy tapes their finger. What do you mean you miss a game because your fingers swell?
Well, he was
I
technically
think we
active.
struck a nerve.
Yes.
What is that?
I know, back in the day. I know, back in the day.
For real, like,
Yeah, yeah,
what is that?
It did sound odd that he was good enough
Yeah,
to.
you miss a game because your hands are going to be swollen until the season is over with. That is offensive lineman, and it should be because you're punching and doing everything.
Did you ever
with
break
your-
a finger, by the way?
No.
They were
Okay.
always
Because
broken
I
all
got
the
a
time.
dislocated something
Yeah.
happened here.
Yeah.
But I mean, I never broke a bone.
Okay.
I've never
I
broken
mean,
a
did
bone.
Baldinger play with the pinky
Oh, that's
like
oh,
this?
that
Yeah,
finger's
yeah,
like
yeah.
all
Play like
messed
with his
up.
pinky like
yeah,
that.
it's all
Man,
messed
Ronnie
up.
Lott bit his finger off and spit it out and kept playing.
So not your father's Philadelphia
What are you
Eagles in the
talking about? He
NFL.
missed a game because his finger. All right, you know what? Let's go ahead.
We got more show to do.
Keep moving through the show.
It is the Trey Soapbox brought to you by Sky Motor Cars.
Yes, absolutely. While we continue on who's in and who's out, and hopefully Trey will spare some of these other fellas, tight end Zach Ertz continues to be out. He was activated into the 21-day window, was not able to play last week, right? Correct?
Yeah, actually, this is the
Or
week.
was this the week he was activated?
Right, this is the
Yeah,
week they
that's
put him in the 21-day window. He started practicing Wednesday. They knew once they started watching him, he wasn't quite there. So the hope is that he'll be available, and he probably will be against the Seahawks next Monday night. They'll have more practice time. Obviously, they won't practice till Thursday, so they'll get him back, Jeff. But unfortunately, they're going to be without some players who went on the COVID list.
Yeah, they are. We've got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as one. He actually tested positive for
But he was a
COVID.
healthy scratch last week anyway.
Correct. Yep.
He
So
was a
won't-
healthy scratch
yep,
last week.
He wouldn't be a
right.
factor anyway.
That's right. Probably not going to be a factor. Some close contacts also on the list. Vinny Curry being one, so he will not be able to play today. Corey Clement on the COVID list will not
Yep.
be able to play. He's their third running back. And practice. I didn't even know this existed. Deontay Burnett went on the practice squad COVID injured reserve list.
Sure.
So there you go.
What about Hightower? Is he on?
No,
He's okay. We were
Hightower's
told,
fine,
he's okay. They sent him home for a day to make sure. And
But he's okay?
He's okay. He will dress today, yes.
Yeah, so obviously the big ones there. Well, Zach Ertz, I don't think we expected to play yet, but not having Corey Clement as your third running back, and we'll talk about it later, but Vinny Curry, one of your better run-down defenders who is not going to be able to play today, and he did not test positive, but he won't be able to play against a Cleveland team that we know likes to run the ball.
You also have where you're going to have the coaches aren't going to be in there. You have the quarterback coach, Press Taylor,
Yep.
and
Aaron Moorhead.
And Moorhead. He's
Yeah.
not going to be their receiver coaches. So how is all of this going to play out when you're on the sideline, when you need to get some type of instruction? You already had Connor Barwin that had to take over the defensive line last week. So how's all of this going to play out as you get, when you need some type of instruction or correction on the sideline.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I thought about what you said all week because a lot of people, yourself included, have been saying there aren't any instructions going on the sideline anyway. I believe with press, I think it's fair to say, whether it's right or wrong, and the accountability notwithstanding, is that most of his job is Monday through Friday with the game plan coordination. Doug Peterson calls the plays, right? So from a play calling standpoint, I don't think they're impacted as much.
Yeah, but there's an information element. A lot of people lose sight of that.
The communication element.
There's an information element. The coaches, for instance, up in the booth, each specific coach on each side of the ball is tasked with a particular thing. Like they might be tasked with, hey, it's first down. What's the personnel the defense is in on first down? What are the coverages that they're playing on first down? You know, what are the front looks you're getting on a particular down and distance? It's information. It's not just play calling.
Right.
You know, you're gleaning information play after play after play, so that ideally you get to the third quarter and you know what the defense is doing, and then you can call plays appropriately. So they have fewer people to give the necessary information.
Correct. Sure.
And I'll be interested to see how much more of an active role Doug Peterson has in coaching Wentz today, because not only is he either play caller or head coach, you don't have that guy like Press Taylor whose job is to manage the quarterback during the game. Now, some people have criticized Taylor for not coaching them during the game. You see some shots where they're not sitting together, but someone's going to have that tablet and show him what he's seeing. And if they're able to throw today, what works and what doesn't work during the game.
Then Nate Sudfeld, that's the guy. That's the guy who sits next to Carson and shows him.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be inactive today. Yeah,
I do think though, not having Aaron Moorhead, and I believe the assistant wide receivers coach is Matt Harper. Am I correct? Matthew Harper.
He's
been with the team for a while.
He was with Chip. He was one of the coaches who's been retained and also has been on covering special teams in terms of coaching. So
this is largely a young wide receiver core, though. You're talking about Jalen Reagor's a rookie, Greg Ward's just really in year 2, John Hightower a rookie. So it's a young group, and you kind of wonder.
And that's important too, because with young guys, you want to be able to talk to them about coverage and what you're getting from a coverage perspective,
right?
And how that impacts the way you run your routes, because routes, like most things in football, there's the ways you teach things, and Trey knows this very well. There's the way you teach things, you know, when you're just out on the practice field and when you run through it the night before in the in the hotel room with the chandeliers, and then there's the game itself where everybody moves and things become fluid, and you have to have a foundation, obviously, for things you do, but things change.
Absolutely. You're not inferring, by the way, that Trey ever ran a route, are you?
No, he's made it very clear that he didn't do any of that.
No
routes.
All right, also, Eagles will be missing Rudy Ford again today with the hamstring. Look, their special teams has been beat up a little bit without Craig James, without Rudy Ford.
And now Clement, too.
And then without Corey Clement.
That's not good for coverage.
The third phase, which often gets lost, I mean, obviously when you're down that many guys, you got to compensate. And as we know, some of their bottom-end wide receivers like Alshon Jeffrey don't play special teams. So they're going to have to kind of manipulate guys and put them in place to get the job done on their 4 special teams units. For the Browns, so they are missing some firepower today. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. has been on IR. He's been out. He will not come back. Myles Garrett, who is making a strong case for Defensive Player of the Year, 9.5 sacks, is out. He is on the COVID-19 list. That was kind of interesting. He was out sick earlier in the week, and they were saying he was not COVID, and then by the end of the week, he was on the COVID
They kept him out of the facility, so that's why there were no other issues.
Exactly. And here's the interesting thing. When you look at the guys who are not be available, these are impactful. Andy Janovich, who they made a trade for because Stefanski is a fullback, he's on COVID. He's on the COVID list. He won't be available. Chris Hubbard, their top backup lineman, he's on COVID-19 list. He's out. We mentioned Garrett. Grady Williams, a starting corner, continues to be out. He's on injured reserve. Grant Delpit, who would be the free safety.
Well, he's been out for the whole season.
He's out for the season, and that's why, Jeff, they're the only NFL team that does not use a traditional free safety. I mean, Sendejo is playing free safety, but he's really not one. So there are some issues they have on both sides of the football.
As we get deeper into the season here, and we'll be back on Monday night for the Seahawks game, this is what the lists are going to look like. You see it around the league. There's a lot of guys who are either testing positive or have been in close contact, and that clearly impacts the game from a personnel standpoint, as it's doing right here. In this one, some other transactions for the Eagles, and I feel like maybe maybe they've been listening to Inside the Birds for the last 2 weeks, and me wondering.
They're probably hanging on every word you say.
I would think so, because
Yeah.
I've been saying for 2 weeks, why do you
Especially when you say iteration.
well, you got to, to impress guys like Howie and
Right, right.
guys. I have
It's
to
in
use
his
those
contract.
words.
He must use one big word a show.
Yeah.
So he's done that.
So I'm done now. I've been saying, well, why would you have Elijah Holyfield on your practice squad taking up a spot if you're not going to use him in the role that you might need him for? Corey Clement out today. They need a bigger, stronger back. Lo and behold, even though they brought in Jordan Howard, who can't play yet for the Eagles, they do elevate Elijah Holyfield, so perhaps we'll see his debut for the Eagles today. Also, it's been a long time coming for Joe Osman. He's been with the team for several years. He was going to make the team last year, got the ACL injury, missed the year, didn't make the team, but was on the practice squad. Kind of a high motor guy. Adam, what do we know about Joe Osman and what he can do?
That's part of it. He's a try-hard. Coaches love him. He's a guy that'll play on special teams, really good in that role. The Eagles say that in practice, in OTAs last year, he was so active and energetic that, because you're just trying to run some plays, they would tell him to slow down, dude. Just don't break up the play. This is not real football.
He's Rudy, right? Is that what you're getting at?
He's a guy that coaches love because he goes hard every play. And you're right, Jeff. They're going to use him in that stand-up linebacker role, but he tore his ACL, and he'll dress today as their fourth end. I don't know how many snaps he'll get, but he definitely will play in special teams.
All right. Also, Caleb Wilson, T.Y. McGill, along with Joe Osman, elevated as COVID-19 replacements. As Tropical Storm Kaplan told us, rain. Now, is it 90% chance of rain? What's the
100 to 96% as of about an hour ago, so it's going to rain the entire game. But the wind won't be a factor. It's been so bad off the lake, but not this game apparently.
It was really bad last week. I don't know if you guys saw the Browns game last week.
I did.
Everybody talks about the fluctuating Browns offense, but what they may not have realized was there were like gale force, hurricane-like winds and hail and everything.
Yeah, but they also have an approach, which we'll get into, that the way they want to play.
Yeah,
right. But
which,
they have
which helps them.
They've had some very high-scoring games, though.
No question.
They're a very seesaw
Well,
offense. Yeah.
Right. That doesn't mean you can't score playing that way, but they have a specific approach.
Exactly. We'll see how the wind and the rain impact the game today. All right, guys, we don't normally do this. We usually focus the show on the matchup, but I'd be remiss if we didn't go back and take a look about last week's game against the Giants and discuss a little bit of what did not happen correctly, because as we all talked about at this time last week, coming out of the bye, the soul searching, the changes you need to make. Trey, you mentioned as a player what you do to decompress so that everybody kind of comes back on the same page. You played for Andy Reid. You know the formula. He's what's the record after the bye, Adam?
18-3.
18-3. Doug Peterson is
impressive.
not.
I know.
Yeah, Doug Peterson's been opposite out of the bye. He has a losing record. I believe he only has one win coming out of the bye. But when you, Greg, I want to start with you. When you look back on that Eagles-Giants game last week, what's the one thing that stood out to you for why they lost the game?
Well, there's macro and there's micro.
Well, give me both then.
Macro is they look exactly the same as they did before the bye.
Right.
So, again, I can't speak to what was done during the bye week. I'm not in the building. But they looked exactly the same, certainly offensively. And I thought defensively, to me, that was the worst game that their linebackers played this season as a group. And I thought, regardless of what the Giants' run numbers were, I know Gallman didn't have 120 yards, but I thought that the Eagles linebackers played a little soft. They were not violent. They were not playing downhill with a lot of aggressiveness and tenacity. And if that carries over today against Cleveland, it will be a tough deal.
Yeah. Trey, you last week talked about, this past week, I should say, you talked about accountability.
Yeah.
About people kind of stepping up, whether it's coaches, players who are not performing to their level, and somebody setting a tone of accountability. And before I get your comment, Brandon Graham actually talked about it this week in his press conference, and I want to play for everybody what he said, and then we'll kind of evaluate it at the end. So let's take a listen right now to what the veteran Eagles defensive end had to say about accountability.
I think it starts definitely with practice because, some of the stuff that's showing up out there, we just being real with ourselves is happening in practice. Jumping off sides, pre-snap penalties, false starts, people dropping balls, us not getting off the rock, you know what I'm saying? So it's just all stuff that we just need to, hone in on, as a team. And I think that we're doing a good job addressing that elephant in the room because, you kind of just, want to say, oh, everything is gonna be all right, it's gonna be all right. But now we at a point now where we know that stuff is affecting us, and we gotta clean that up. And so, what I love the most is how Doug brings his energy and don't let a lot of this stuff get to him too much. But just know that he got to make a change, and it starts with him, and it trickles down to us. And we got to make sure that we policing that when we see stuff happening in practice.
All right, that was veteran defensive end for the Eagles, Brandon Graham, who leads the team in sacks, having a very good year. And as one of the leaders of the team, look, he was not trying to say everybody's not being – what he was trying to basically do is isolate some things that are going on. And he said, we're having mistakes in practice. We're doing things we shouldn't do. And he said it's up to the coaches to set the tone. And he said it's up to the players to police it. He was trying to be diplomatic. But I think what stood out, Trey, is that he's talking about – mistakes that are constantly happening in practice and that they need to get rectified. This is week 11. This is week 11, right? Yeah, week 11. You would think that would be going on earlier in the season.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, that's why you say, anytime I've been talking about this team is that you have to set the tone early in the season. And Brandon Graham isn't talking about rookies that are making mistakes. He's talking about fellow vets that are making mistakes, that are not holding themselves accountable, that are messing up, that are being late to certain situations. One of the things that what Doug was talking about earlier is like when he was asked, what are some of the issues that you've been having with COVID? Is having guys show up in time for meetings. Like, what is that?
Right.
As a coach, you have to police that right out the gate. And if your players aren't policing it, then the position coaches need to be policing it. This is something that should have been nipped in the bud from jump. But you can see that the accountability just isn't there. And one of the things when you come out of the bye week and you gave 3-4 days off, and you come out and you say, all right, you know what, I'm going to award a rest day. Coming out of the bye week, what's the purpose of that? That sets the tone for your players. And then you can see it just throughout this game, how they just didn't come with any energy, any type of pizzazz. And, Jalen Mills was out there, he played like he practiced, where they say, hey, stay off the ground. I counted 5 times Jalen Mills hit the ground the entire game as a safety. You had 150 yards rushing, and as a safety that's playing in the box, you only hit the ground 5 or 6 times the entire game. That's unacceptable. You know what I'm saying? So that, to me, I just feel like as a coach, either it's too late now. You're not going to be able to correct
I
this
agree.
now.
It's
too
too
late
late.
because the time to correct it was during the bye week. And if you didn't correct it during the bye week, you may as well. You just want to ride this out now.
Trey, the word I got Peterson's rookie season 2016 was there was a lack of accountability. Guys were late for practices, late for meetings, and he wasn't finding them. Now, what happened the next year, someone got in his ear, and there was accountability. He was getting hard. He was harder on the players, harder on his coaches, but something has happened since we fast forwarded this. So what would Andy do when you guys would have a losing streak? What would he do to get things going?
Oh, we're going to put the pads back on. Hey, we're going to put the pads back on and we're going to get back to these physical practices. And then we knew what was going to happen. And then there was no being late. I was late one time my 11 years here as an Eagle.
Rookie season?
No, it was, I was hanging out with Jamal Jackson one year at Dale
The bus just got
I was down there at Dale State, wide open, man. And, we didn't get home until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was late. So whatever, but it pisses me off to this day. Just because as a player, I always wanted to be on time. I wanted to be the guy that you could rely on. And I remember it to this day, like, it bothers me. But right out the gate, you knew that, number one, you're going to get fined. You're going to get fined. And it was that week during Green Bay. So we had to play Green Bay that week. I didn't start. I got fined, and I didn't start that game. But that's how Big Red made sure he held us accountable. Doug is not going to hold these guys accountable like that. He's too friendly with them, and you can't be that way with them. If you're not, you have to be. It's too late now to come in with the iron fist. It's too late now because you're going to have to blow things up for him to come in with the iron fist because there's some of your vets that are taking advantage of the situation.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm not. I wasn't an NFL player, obviously, but I remember talking numerous times with Ron Jaworski when Dick Vermeil was the coach. And, I would say to Jaws, I'd say, what would happen if so-and-so did this? And Jaws just turned to me and said, that would never happen. He said, Vermeil set the tone from day one. Stuff like that would never happen because the tone was set. Players knew that you just don't not do the right
So
thing.
I asked Jaws last week on his radio show. I said, Jaws, what would happen Monday morning in those quarterback meetings? And with that, back then was real, whether it was Sid Gilman or Dick Vermeil, when you'd watch tape. Dick would let him have it.
Oh.
I mean, he would, and Jaws said one of the players told him, might have been Keith Krefley, they could hear it on the other side of the Veterans Stadium.
Yeah, well, another great story too. Sterling Sharp used to be at NFL
Oh,
Films
yeah.
all the time, and I became really close with him. Just haven't seen him in a while because he's not at NFL Films anymore.
I worked with him for a year.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And we had a conversation one day about Brett Favre, and obviously he loves Brett Favre.
Favre and Holmgren.
Yeah, but he told me, he said point blank, he said Favre would have been out of the league in 40 years if it wasn't for Holmgren. And if you say that, most people think, oh, Brett Favre's, he's one of the top five quarterbacks of all, blah, blah, blah. He said Holmgren was so hard on him, and he said you had to be hard on him. And we actually have wires in NFL Films where Favre would walk off the field, and Holmgren would literally walk right up to him and get in his face. And what the F you doing? I mean, he would get right up in his face, and we coached him. And it was hard. He held him accountable.
No more rocket balls. Remember that?
Yeah, that was one of them. That's
a great one.
That's a famous one.
Yes.
But there were many, many more that never saw the light of day. But working in the building, I can see all this.
It's actually fascinating when we talk about Carson Wentz, the coaching, and that very often throughout his career, Carson has been compared to Brett Favre. So it's interesting there. Now you said it's too late for the Iron Fist, and that struck me, Trey, because if you watch Doug Peterson in his press conference on Monday, you saw a different kind of Doug Peterson. You saw one was very sarcastic, combative with reporters, interrupting a guy 3 times before he got the question out just to gush over the fact that the observation was made that he ran the ball. And I thought, this is either Doug trying to be something different to have everybody rally around, or it's a crack in the foundation, because I never remember Andy, no matter how bad things were, changing who he was. He had his mad moments. I don't want to get it wrong, but this for Doug was very out of character, and I didn't know what to make of that.
Yeah, I think Doug is frustrated, and his frustration, and he's putting it out on the media at times. But I think that at times, you need to put it into your players, and I know for a fact that you have players that have a bad game, but they'll go in there and watch it with the coach by themselves, so that when they watch it as a group, you don't get corrected in front of the guys. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. When you have a coach, and it's not always on Doug. Doug can only do so much. Your position coaches need to hold guys accountable. And if you have a player that says, all right, I have a bad game, he goes in a day before everybody else comes in to watch the film so that he can just say, all right, chew me out now by myself. But then when you get in front of everybody, you just breeze over the mistake saying, oh, well, you know what, you messed up there. Hey, we already talked about that. Let's move on to the next play. No, you need to correct that just like anybody else. And that's where you have problems. That's where you start having cracks in this whole system.
This plays into what you were talking about with the lack of accountability. You can't have that. And this has been an ongoing issue, by the way. This has been going all season. And one thing I do want to say about Doug Peterson, and this is an issue in 2016. It got corrected, and now it's rearing its ugly head again. He needs to stop being a head coach. He needs to stop being an offense coordinator head coach. What that means is the guy who's got his playbook, got his panel, looking at the plays, and start coaching the team. That is so much more important right now, because this season is spiraling out of control. They had their great schedule, Jeff. They've not taken advantage of it, and right now, as you said, 5 straight games with teams over 500 record. It's only going to get worse for them.
Well, Doug, when you say he needs to stop being the /offensive coordinator head coach, his play calling came up this week a lot. Because I think of what you said, Greg, which is coming out of the bye, you saw the same exact team going into the bye. When you watch that game and you watch the tape and you just saw offensively what they tried to do, are you basically saying that they tried to line it up and win with what they normally do? You didn't see. Now, how often because you watch tape of all teams around the league, good teams, bad teams, how often do you see that where the blueprint just kind of looks like the same week to week to week?
Well, I think that, look, every offensive coach has a big playbook. Trey knows this. I mean, there's big playbooks.
Yeah,
Right. No one goes into a game with 250 plays. No one does that because the players can't handle that. That's too much.
Of course.
So it all depends on what part of the playbook in a given week that you really want to focus on. What's going to be your foundation? Now, there's different concepts, and it's how you want to get to those concepts. A lot of times you can run the same concepts every week, but it's how you get to them, when you call them. formations, offensive coaches don't never use the word window dressing. A lot of announcers say, well, that's window dressing. Right. There's no such thing as window dressing to an offensive coach. Motion, shifts, those kinds they're not window dressing. They're done for a reason. So it's how you get to what you want to get to. Now, one thing that always stands out to me with the Eagles, and it's actually, I'm only surprised because I know that Doug Peterson comes from the West Coast school. We're talking Bill Walsh, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid, Doug Peterson. It's the same playbook, okay? Mm-hmm. What surprises me is how much individual isolation routes that they run where they expect their wide receivers to win, in a sense, one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And that's true against zone, too, because all zones end up being matchups at some point.
Right.
Somebody has to pick up somebody.
Right. So what you're saying is instead of, per se, scheming guys open, they're asking the guys themselves to figure out ways to get open.
Right, they're asking them to win.
That was mentioned to me, by the way, a Brown source who had done advance on the Eagles said the same thing. They're
well, the tape tells you that. I'm not making this up.
It's
the
all
tape
from
tells
the tape.
you that.
They're asking the receivers, Jeff, particularly young receivers, to win on their own. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you watch Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they're doing it for them by play design.
Right.
And that's what.
And that's all in the Doug Peterson playbook. It's not as if the play design's not in the
Greg,
playbook.
in 2017, their Super Bowl year, how much was it you got to win, and how much was it designed to get these guys open that you can remember?
I thought there was way more design involved, particularly in critical situations, third down and red zone. I thought their play design was really good. Red zone that year, I thought they had among the best play design in the
Number
NFL.
One. DiFilippo ran that, yeah.
If you go back to last year, real quick, they were the third best team in the red zone and the fourth best offensive team third down. So situationally, they were an excellent football team.
They're not very good situationally
despite
this year.
having all of the injuries to wide receivers.
So it's there. That's my point. Right. It's there. I can't speak to why. I can only tell you what the film shows. I can't tell you why.
It feels like there's a rut going on, and then they're trying to figure out a way to snap out of it, and they can't.
Because when you go back and you look at that New York game, I mean, you want the receivers to win, but I mean, they covered everything. Yeah. New York did a really good job of covering them, when you look.
And they played mostly zone. Yeah. They only played two-man. They played two-man on third down, which is what the Giants have done all year. Yep. So you need to know that because that's what the Giants tape shows.
What you mean is two safeties deep and man underneath.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just get caught up in just talking ball. But
for the future, Greg Cassell's out there.
Right. But two deep safeties, man-to-man across the board. So you're just getting a four-man rush. Okay. So you theoretically you shouldn't be worrying about pressure, but other than that, the Giants played high percentage zone, which they played all year. So you knew all this going into the game.
Wow, got to take advantage of it.
They
couldn't.
They couldn't.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
they couldn't take advantage. I was getting
excited.
And then you start you start abandoning some of the rules of protection. Right. You don't slide to the nickel blitzer that's coming there. You had a cap safety where when I'm talking about a cap safety, you have the safety right over the nickel cornerbacks, which tells you everything about that look should tell you
blitz.
Here comes the blitz.
Right.
And they ignore it. They say, you know what, we're going to keep everything inside. You send the running back across to take care of the blitzer. You do that one time, but then the next couple of times you don't, which confuses the running back.
Is that a Carson Wentz issue, seeing that?
No, that's
Kelsey's.
Coaches. That's Kelsey.
Okay.
He did not have a great game.
That is Kelsey. Kelsey did not have a good game. Okay. When you go back and you look at Baltimore, who said, you know what, we're going to bench our center because he had a bad game. No one's going to do that here in Philly.
Right.
No one's going to do that. And he had a terrible game with calls and also with the snaps, but they didn't.
They don't bench players.
The snaps are inexcusable.
No, you don't.
They rarely do with this coaching staff.
Yeah, we're going to get into Jason Kelce when we get into trench talk and talk about some of those snap issues that we saw. All right, I want to finish it up on this because, Adam, we know, and most people do by now, that a lot of those changes in the offseason, Mike Rowe gone, Carson Walsh gone, those were, after Doug said they were going to be back, those were enabled by the team owner. He wanted change.
Not a secret.
He wanted more guys in that had ideas, so they bring in a Rich Scangarello, they bring in back Marty Morningweg. He coached you, didn't he, Marty?
Yeah, Marty
My gosh.
our OC.
Yeah, so Andrew Briner for the spread concepts, Aaron Moorhead, wide receivers. I mean, they made a lot of changes. I can't imagine that Jeffrey Lurie is looking at all this, all the money he's paying for all these extra coaches, and thinking this is acceptable. I mean, he wanted new ideas. He wanted I believe it was him who said, in order to win in this league, you have to have a top 5 offense. And the Eagles right now are in the bottom third in offense.
Yeah, I'm told after the Dallas game, he made it very clear that he's not happy with the direction of the offense. I don't know who he said it to. I just know from what I've heard that he's not happy with it. Who could be? It's not surprising. As you mentioned, In fact, there was an Inquirer article around this time last year that the coaches were in trouble.
Right.
So they're going to have to turn this around. But the thing that's different this year, Greg was the first one last year. He would watch the tape. He'd say to me, "This is the slowest offense I've seen on tape."
Right.
Now they've got a lot of
No excuses this year.
They've
right?
got a lot of speed on offense, and I get that they're young, but Jeff, you're right. There are no excuses. What have they done that's different? Every team I talk to, and Greg alluded to this, the offense looks the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't look any different. How's that even
Because the
possible?
tape tells. I mean, like I
Right.
said, I'm not
Right.
just talking because I feel like talking.
Right.
The
Yeah.
tape tells you that.
And that's what these people
Yeah,
are seeing.
that's what the same people who watch
right.
tape in the league.
Right.
They see it too.
And how's that possible?
I don't know.
The only new play that I saw last week coming from the New York game was that play that they ran to Rager for the 4th and 1. Where you you ran the receivers out and you send Rager underneath.
Right.
Bam, there you go. Nice little quick
Right.
read.
Right.
You know,
'Cause
that's the
that's-
only different little
Yeah.
change up that I saw going into this coming.
I mean,
next
here,
week.
think of it this way. And again, this is not a knock. I'm just trying. We're just talking football here, conceptual football.
Yes.
You have a tight end in Dallas Goedert, okay? We know he's not exactly Kelsey or Kittle, not exactly, but he's an athletic tight end, okay? He'd probably be, if you look at all the tight ends in the league, Goddard would certainly be in the top 10 in terms of athletic movement. And he has run after catch ability,
And
by the
he
way.
does everything. And as you've been
Right.
telling us, he's a better athlete than Ertz,
He is.
correct?
Yeah.
So now, since I watch every team in the league and see what teams do with their tight ends, I'm waiting for the Eagles to use Goddard in that fashion. You know, where you line him up and he does more than run. What they run a lot with him are what I call those sit routes. Like in the West Coast offense, they're often called Hank routes, as you know. Those where you just run right over the center
And turn.
at 7 yards and turn around. You know, they do that a ton with Goddard. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I think his skill set leads you to believe that more can be done.
Tunnel
and again,
screens. Tyler Higbee last year, when Tyler Higbee set an NFL record, Jeff, for the most 100-yard games in a row by a tight end, it was like they discovered plutonium. They kept using him a certain way. It was when they got 8 injured at receiver.
Sure.
Goddard is actually more talented than this kid. And I don't understand the usage. I understand that for the run game he's important, but they didn't. He's a second-round pick. They didn't draft him to just block. Come on.
No, they're certainly not. And he showed in his first few years that he can be a dynamic tight end. I want to continue this discussion on the offense and what's going wrong, because when you look at where they rank offensively compared to what they were last year, the year before, even when they've struggled, they've never been this bad. And you just look, they're averaging 22.6 points per game. That's 24th in the league, 27th in the league in yards per game, 27th in passing yards per game, 24th on third down. I said last year they were the 4th best team
Jeff,
on third down. Now they're 24th.
Pass yards per game, 209. I never would have believed that.
Is
That's
that not
a joke.
incredible? 200
That's
for this team?
unbelievable.
And red zone, I told you they were 4th in red zone last year. They are 30th. They are the 3rd worst red zone team in the NFL this year. Look, all these numbers, and you think, oh, there's nowhere to go but up. But obviously, as you guys are mentioning, something has to change. And I really wonder about the situational football. Last week against the Giants, third down, I believe they were 0 for 9.
They were. They did
Yeah.
not convert a third down.
When you looked at that specifically, what went wrong there?
Well, I don't think we're reinventing the wheel here. I think you're dealing with the fact that the receivers, again, you're running a lot of individual isolation routes. There's not defined throws. Wentz missed a few clearly, you know, and he's been
Right.
missing. And you know,
continues to throw the ball
we've harped
high.
on the mechanic. I mean, we
Right.
can certainly go over that again because there's 3 specific things from a mechanical standpoint that continue to be problematic.
Yeah, no, I want you to actually say them again. You know, we have a lot of new viewers. So what we talked about earlier in the season with Wentz and the mechanics were these 3 things. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Number 1, he's an overstrider. Number 2, because his motion is slightly elongated, you know, he's not a pure compact thrower, is then when you overstride, your arm has to catch up to your stride, okay? And your arm, because he's not a compact thrower, will often not quite catch up to your stride. So then you end up speeding up your delivery, okay? And the last thing is, because you overstride and you're trying to catch up, is there's no weight transfer. There's no core torque. So he ends up throwing a lot of balls kind of off his back foot, pulling away, and all this results in balls, those 3 things results in balls sailing. You never see him throw balls low in the dirt. Everything sails because he overstrides, he tries to catch up, and he doesn't come through with his core. And no matter what sport you're playing, by the way, any sport, when your feet are significantly wider than your shoulders, you really can't do very much athletically.
It's kind of odd. I mean, and I only say this because we're going to compare Eagles quarterbacks, but Donovan at times had accuracy issues, and everybody would get on him for the low throw, for the worm burner. And Carson here has accuracy
Well, he had a different
issues.
issue.
And
Not
I'm
that
saying
late.
two different guys, different reasons, though. But almost the same outcome, which is they're not accurate
Right.
when they
They're
need
not
to be
consistently
most.
accurate.
Not
I mean,
consistently
look,
and repetitive.
we know that Wentz is very talented. Any given game, he could come out and be great.
Yeah.
The problem is you just don't know when he's going to sail a ball. He could sail a ball to a wide open receiver because
Unfortunately, what he's done this season,
yeah,
he's missed guys
because,
have been open.
You know, the reason to me, and again, people I've learned from, because believe me, I had to learn all this, you know, and I study this now, but I've been with NFL Films 41 years. I've been so fortunate to learn from the guys who've done this the best in the history of the game. I've been grateful and fortunate. But at the end of the day, playing quarterback is ultimately about repetitive mechanics. Now, everybody focuses today because the game has quote-unquote changed to guys who can run around. But at the end of the day, throwing the football is about repetitive mechanics. And you have to do it all the time, every day, every throw. You have to do it right all the time. Okay, that's why practice is so important. Because it's not just, hey, let's go out on Sunday and play some football today.
Right.
It has to, you know, the reason the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses are great when it's 3rd and 9 with a minute to go in a game is not because they have the it factor, whatever the hell that means. I never know what that means anyway.
Right.
It's because they do the same thing all the time. So it's so ingrained that no matter what the situation, they do the same thing all the time.
Right.
Repetitive accuracy.
Repetitive accuracy.
Repetitive
is the term,
mechanics.
Right. Sorry, the third down and the red zone offense, which have been just awful this year. I mean, for people that don't realize, that is in itself a day's worth of practice. Right? I know you have one practice where you're heavily devoted to third down and one practice where you're heavily devoted to red zone.
Yeah,
the week?
we have our red zone situations in our third down. We usually it's our Thursday practice. I think we kind of dedicate that towards your third down plays. But you go back and you look at what we ran during those third down plays. I mean, we tried to go back to the well again, where we tried to have that Fulgham pass go up the left side of the field, like New York never watched any film. And then we tried to come back and we had Reagor running up the middle of the field, like New York never watched any film. And then you have double coverage on that one deep route there that was taken out. And then the one play where that was a 4th and 10 play. I felt like he should have led him. But I just felt like we tried to go back to some of those plays that worked well, like New York didn't watch any film. You know, like they get paid too to make sure, okay, hey, look out for this. This is what they're going to try to do. And I just felt like we didn't come with anything new. In New York, when you go back and you look at what Garrett did to us, schemed us to death.
Did a great job, Jason Garrett.
Schemed us to death.
Here's the thing I don't understand. For the first time all season, they did a ton of pre-snap motion against Dallas. So you think, okay, this will be part of the game plan every week because this is what the good teams do.
Right.
Give the defensive coordinator something to think about. How much did they do last week, Jeff and Greg? How much pre-snap
Not much
motion
at
did Eagles
all.
do?
Very little.
How does that happen?
I have no idea. And the funny
How
thing
did they
is,
have a bye?
it's the trendy thing in the NFL to be doing this year. I feel like more and more teams are incorporating pre-snap motion.
People should take a look. I don't remember everything, but Bill Belichick this week, Bill Belichick's press conferences are phenomenal.
They are.
If you ask him about anything unrelated to the game
his team.
that's
Right.
coming
His
up.
team, right.
Right.
Sure.
And he was asked about motion this week, and he gave a 5-minute answer. And I have the transcript, but I'm not going to read that. You know.
Yeah, it was like a dissertation.
It was a
he gave,
dissertation on motion.
Soliloquy.
Second big
Yeah,
one.
and people should look. I'm sure you can find it on the internet. You know, people should look that up because it's so. You know, Belichick, when he goes into one of those things, it's so great.
Yeah.
But I mean, motion is something that teams use, and there's. Look, years ago, we used to just think motion was about being a zone man indicator. Now, that's still a part of it to some degree, but defenses have also gotten better in not just showing their hand, whether it's zone or man.
Right. I thought from a running game standpoint, we did see a few different things. Some what do they call those? The pin pulls, right? Where
The pin pull?
We call
Yeah.
it toss crack, toss
Yeah.
crunch.
Yeah.
So when it's toss crack, that means that the offensive tackle or whoever the offensive lineman has the widest guy.
Correct.
If it's crunch, then now the receiver is taking the widest guy, and the offensive lineman is taking one of the interior guys. So that's pretty much how we kind of divvy it up between the crack and crunch.
Right. I saw between that
Toss
and
crack is very big in the league now. You know, it's just terminology. I call it pin pull, where you take the tackle and he goes out and he just blocks the widest defender. If you do it to the boundary, it's always going to be the corner.
Right.
You know, and then what you have is you have usually wide receivers. It could be a flex tight end. They seal or pin the D end and the first stack backer, or a safety. You know, it depends on the front. But I mean, it's a pin. Those guys pin, and you get the tackle that pulls.
Right. So we saw a little bit of that with the run game,
Yeah.
and then as you mentioned, that fourth down play to Rager was a little bit different. But after that, it was kind of like, we're going to line it up and do what we do. I wonder, and I said this last week in the show about Fulgham especially. Young kid, first year, all the attention on him, not used to it, wasn't a first-round pick, and I thought it was going to be incumbent upon Doug to make sure that they're getting him the ball a little early, getting him into the rhythm and the flow of the game, moving him around. And I said I fear that as the season goes on, if you don't do that, you lose some impact from him, and it's just one game.
Right.
But clearly, I don't think there was a concentrated effort to get him the ball in a lot of different
There had
ways.
been, right, there had been. But look, this offense was so off last week, Jeff. It's still hard to understand coming out of a bye. You could be this bad. And I get the Giant defense has improved under Patrick Graham, their D coordinator, but it just gives you a sense of where are they going from here. We've said all season, particularly lately, what is this team's identity? What did they do well? Okay, they do run the ball well, fairly well with Sanders, but they're not a consistent offense in any way, shape, or form. And right now, even though Samalo's back this week, I don't know how much a difference that's going to make.
I don't either. I was going to ask you guys.
And unfortunately, today might be I'm just trying to think it through rationally. Today might be a tough way to judge the pass game if the weather is what it is.
Right.
You know, again, I'm not defending anybody. They don't need to be defended, as we know. But today might not be the day to judge, a pass game.
Yeah, Adam, Tropical Storm Kaplan can give us the rules of weather.
The latest
that you
one,
always say?
99 from 1 to 4 p.m., 99 to 100%. Low 40s, wind 10 miles an hour. So it's going to rain all game.
I think 99 to 100% probably means it's going to rain.
Well,
High probability.
It's going to be wet the entire game.
And you don't care about rain?
I don't care. I mean, I hated the cold games,
He's
but
from
I mean,
Florida. It rains every day.
I'm a tropical nature being,
There
I
you
mean,
go.
but just
You just didn't want cold and
yeah,
snow.
I just said, man, playing in Chicago when it was like 12 degrees, I didn't like that. But,
Did you wear sleeves?
oh yeah.
Okay.
You know, my first couple years, I tried to get out there and be tough. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go sleeves, no sleeves. Man, once again-
Let's go offensive
See,
line.
you know what here's what I don't understand. When it's a game like that, and you see the defensive lineman and offensive lineman sitting on the bench, when
The warmers.
yeah, but they're not wearing a coat over them, and they have no sleeves. They have to be freezing there, what. I don't care how tough you are.
Yeah,
If
it's
it's 12 degrees and you're not wearing sleeves and you're sitting on the bench,
Yeah, I stopped that early in my career. I started putting sleeves on. I'm like, damn, that.
Hell
It's
with
too
that.
cold.
Yeah, yeah. Freezing their gazettes off.
you didn't have anything to prove.
I'm here,
That's right.
I just feel like Nate Herbig somewhere is saying, this guy's ripping me for not playing with a swollen finger, and he's more upset about sleeves.
With a swollen finger. What is that?
Also, in case Jamal Jackson is watching, brother, that was not written into the script. He threw you under the bus.
I did
Wasn't
not
us.
throw him. I accept full responsibility for my time of being late.
There
It was
you go.
awesome. We had a great time down at Dell State.
I bet you did. That powerhouse.
Hey, that's where John Taylor went, right? JT, Delaware State.
That's where Jamal Jackson went.
That's what Jamal J. Yeah.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
we had a blast.
Jalen Rager was a guy that they sort of tried to put the ball in their hands in, and again, last week was very difficult. Now, I was told that they are really going to continue to try to make an effort to get this guy the ball at least 10 to 12 times a game and do it in a variety of ways.
Run
the
game,
question is, can
end
they
around,
execute it?
inside
Yes.
handoff, like other teams are doing it.
I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill,
Yeah.
but theoretically you could use him in a similar fashion. And what the Chiefs do with Tyreek Hill, you were there. They do so much cool stuff with Tyreek Hill that's not just running routes, is what I mean. And that's what you got to try to do.
How problematic is, because it's been said a little bit, and I don't want to make too much of a big deal, but you have young wide receivers out there. When you're watching the route running itself, do these guys leave a lot to be desired, or are they just what you normally expect from young wide
That's what
receivers?
you normally expect. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I don't watch the tape and go, "Wow, God, these guys are bad route runners."
But again, how much are the coaches, Jeff, scheming them to get open?
Yeah.
That's my issue with it.
All right, Carson Wentz today against this Browns defense, real quick, just on a plan of attack. Do you see more 10, more 11, more 12 personnel? How do you go about it today?
I'm thinking you're going to, because you have Rodgers. I think Rodgers is all right as a tight end, as a receiver. Tight end, he can get out there and catch the ball.
Did a
I
good
can see
job.
I can see a little bit more 12 personnel. But then again, but even like you said last week, they came out there and ran 10 personnel. So, which is one running back, 4 wide receivers. So, they came out there and gave you a little bit of that. Then now this week you're going to see, I think you'll see a little bit more 11, 12. I think with Rodgers, the way he is as a receiver, I think you could see some more 12 personnel as well.
If you do, I mean, if they feel like they want to play more in 12, obviously you'll get the Browns in their base 4-3.
Right.
Which you'll have Goodson as the Mike linebacker, flanked by Mac Wilson, who's a second-year player from Alabama. He's athletic, and Taki will be the other outside backer. So, the Browns' front's not bad. I mean, look, Garrett is arguably as good as there is at defensive end in the league.
Sure.
But Sheldon Richardson is your classic 3 technique. He's very explosive, always has been. Claiborne will start, now in his place. He's been in the league a long time.
Yeah,
he's a solid
pass rusher.
NFL player.
Right.
And actually, they have the nose, Ogunjobi, I believe.
Larry Ogunjobi.
He's a good player too.
He is.
He's a good player too.
All right, we will get into that in trench talk. I just felt when you look at the Browns, here's the dilemma I feel for the Eagles is that, as Adam mentioned, they don't really have the most talented of coverage safeties. They have one pretty good corner. They're struggling at the other corner with Terrence Mitchell. You'd like to be able to air it out and take advantage, but clearly the Eagles are in a stage where I feel like they have to crawl before they walk a little bit. They got to get a rhythm going, and I can feel like Doug probably battling that right now or in the week leading up in his game plan. Like, I want to attack these guys, but my offense has not been functional enough where I can trust that we can go downfield right
Well, you got to see what the conditions are. If the conditions allow it, because it shouldn't be too windy.
Well, you said, no wind is
wind shouldn't be
I mean,
bad.
if it's not pouring in
Right,
buckets,
right,
if
right.
it's just...
If you can protect, obviously with Seumalo back, you would think they could protect better. If you can protect, we say this every week, plays are there to be had. They're more of a bend-and-don't-break defense, especially now without Garrett. There's got to be some opportunities there, but sometimes you fight yourself. Again, it comes down to their identity. And the other thing is, every week, screen game. Where the heck is the screen game with Sanders?
See,
the
Browns are again, this comes back now to game planning. The Browns are a predominant single high safety defense. Every team plays some split, but they're a predominant single high safety. And Adam made the point earlier in the show, which is true. They do not have a true post safety. So they end up playing Sendejo more in the post. Harrison is almost your classic strong safety. But now they play some snaps because he fits the role of a single high safety more. They play Redwine, who's a second-year player from the University of Miami.
Right.
So Shedrick Redwine is faster. I don't know if he's a true post safety either, but clearly Sendejo and Harrison are not.
Correct.
So going into this game, you're going to get a lot of single high, and on the back end at safety, they don't have a lot of speed, juice, and range.
Goddard game to me. If the weather holds up, this has got to be a Goddard game. You've got to take advantage of those safeties.
I get a feeling that if we're talking about after this game or by this time next Monday night, if we're talking about an offense that struggled yet again, then this team's got bigger problems than even we think. Because
And one other point about the defense is, for much of this season, Denzel Ward, who's a very good corner, had been playing left corner with Mitchell at right corner. Last week, I noticed on tape, they made Ward the boundary corner. So that means he plays both sides. He just plays to the short side of the field.
Right.
So I don't know why they made that adjustment. It might have been team specific to the Texans, or maybe it's something they're now going to do. So that's just something to look for today, because normally he'd been the left corner, but last week he played the boundary corner.
All right. Speaking of Carson Wentz, we are going to take a break right now to hear from Carson and our friends from Sky Motor Cars. Check them out.
Hi, this is quarterback Carson Wentz. I'm here to tell you about my friends at Sky Motor Cars. Sky Motor Cars is the premier luxury car dealership in the greater Philadelphia area that promises to provide honest and efficient service whether you're buying, selling, or trading in your car. Go visit skymotorcars.com to learn more, and when you buy or sell your next vehicle with Sky, tell them Carson sent you.
All right, I told you we were going to be giving away or continuing our giveaway of a Carson Wentz autographed jersey, courtesy of our friends from Sky Motors. So make sure you go to the Inside the Birds Twitter account. That's at Inside Birds on Twitter for a chance to win a Carson Wentz autographed jersey, courtesy of Sky Motor Cars, a place that Adam Kaplan knows very well.
I did. My wife and I got a car from Brett Scholder and his group last summer. The best car buying experience of my life. I've been buying cars, I guess, since I was like 20. 1989, 1990, that area. It's in and out very quickly, very, very professional. And they know your time is limited when you go in there. They don't want to keep you there for 3 hours. So, when you get a new car or you go to a dealership, it could take you 3 or 4 hours. You're in and out in a half an hour. Like, where does that happen? So check them out in Westchester, Sky Motor Cars.
I actually saw on their Twitter account they had Avante Maddox out.
Yes,
Avante.
Nice
too.
Sheldon Brown, and so many players have gotten cars for them.
If you go over there, make sure you tell them that Adam and Jeff sent you.
That's right.
Get a nice little deal on it.
And then they'll show you the door immediately.
Oh, get out of here. Wise guy.
All right, it's time for Trench Talk. As we do every pregame show, we get real deep into the trenches, both the offensive line and the defensive line. And as we mentioned, the Eagles are getting healthier. They have Isaac Seumalo back. It's going to be 4 of their 5 starters going into the season. I'm wondering, Trey, with you, we'll start with all. With the idea of just the continuity, if these guys can stay healthy, we just spent a lot of time talking about the offense and what's wrong with it, and we were talking about concepts and routes and receivers. We talked a little bit about protection. You did especially. But is this something that getting Isaac back, you think, makes everything a little bit more smoother, or because you were kind of alluding to some deeper-seated issues there?
Well, yeah, because it's good to get Isaac back, but some of the stuff they've been getting beat on has been technical stuff. There's been technical issues, stuff that's being taught throughout the week. You didn't think that everybody saw that Opeta was lining up a little too close on the center all throughout the week and that he could possibly step on Carson Wentz's foot when he was running that play? Why was that not corrected during the week in practice? This is stuff I clipped maybe 4 or 5 clips of him just lining up that he could have stepped on Carson Wentz's foot maybe 2 or 3 more times before that actually happened.
Isn't that what the video for? You go and watch it and say, hey, look, the coach has you guys, Xeroxes or whatever it is now, tablets, and they show you that?
You just go in.
I'm old. I say Xerox.
I would love to
Photocopier,
sit
yes,
in NFL films with a clicker, man.
I've done it with them. Oh, my God.
Hey,
man, I would be there
You're a
all
genius
day.
when you can watch it 15
That's
times.
right.
Yeah, man. But anyway, to me, it's just a lot of technical stuff that should be taught. So it doesn't matter. You can get back whoever if you're still doing the same technical stuff that's causing problems.
Could you tell when you're watching tape that clearly there's something wrong in practice when you continually see these issues?
Yes, because you keep seeing the same things happening. And if it's not corrected, then, what are you doing?
Right.
Because, if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, then that's something that, I got to stop looking at the player and start looking at the coaching. Because now, the player's going to do whatever you allow him to do. So if the coach isn't correcting this, then it's no longer on the player.
Right.
That's the coach's responsibility.
There's an old expression, Trey knows this, you either coach it or you let it happen.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now Seumalo is a pretty good athlete for his size and the position. Especially when you compare
Strong
him
as hell.
to Herbig and Sua Opeta. So I'm wondering some of the stuff we talked about last week, the pin pulls or just the run game concepts, which I think have been pretty decent. If they can expand on that today, if you expect to see more. If you go back to week 2 or 3 against the Bengals, they were doing some of that interesting misdirection and motion stuff prior to the snap or even right at the snap. And I wonder if they can get back to that today.
Yeah, possibly you could get back to it because now you have Isaac, who is pretty much another center down there at guard. But you had the same thing with Nate Herbig, too. He's a center as well.
Right.
So because that's the problem when you start having some of these motions and everything going on, then now that could change your protection responsibilities on the fly. Because now you have a situation where you bring a receiver, he goes in motion, now you have that nickel corner that's sitting there on the line of scrimmage. What are you going to do? Are you going to fan that? Are you going to slide to it? How are you going to adjust to that? So, a lot of the issues that I see on this offensive line isn't necessarily the player. It's what's being taught throughout the week.
Just a thought. The motion thing is fascinating because, and it just popped into my head when Trey was mentioning motion. Sometimes teams don't use motion because the quarterback doesn't like it, and I'll tell you why.
I know
and
where
it has
you're going.
nothing to do with intelligence of the quarterback. Because you know who didn't want motion used ever?
Number 18.
Peyton Manning. He never wanted motion used at all because he was so good at understanding what the defense was before the snap of the ball. Because don't forget, when you motion a player, the defense moves too, more often than not.
Right.
And nothing's 100% of football, but more often than not. So they'd line Marvin Harrison up on the right, they'd line Reggie Wayne up on the left, and that's the way they would run their, because then Peyton could see exactly what was going on. Now, I don't know Carson Wentz's view of motion. Maybe they don't do motion. Maybe I don't know. I don't know the answer to this.
Good question.
But maybe they don't do motion because Carson, feels that, hey, I got a good view of the defense. I like what I see pre-snap. I don't want a lot of motion.
Well,
Maybe. I don't know the answer to
No,
that.
it's funny you bring that up because they did so much in Dallas. They did more in one game than they had done prior to that.
And maybe they did a lot in Dallas because Dallas doesn't move their defense all. You know, it can be a function of the defense you're playing against too. Because if the defense reacts in a meaningful way to motion in terms of moving people, then the quarterback and the offensive, everybody, I mean the offensive line too, everybody has to understand what that movement is within a 3-second period of time.
Jeff, one of the knocks I've gotten, this is off of what Greg's saying, is that the route concepts, when we talk to people who advance on the Eagles, very critical. It's not only just scheming them to get open. What are they doing to, from a big standpoint, just an overview, to get these guys to beat man coverage? What are they doing to get these guys to win? And they're not doing that. That's the one thing we hear every week.
Also seems like they're not making the defense have to think a little bit.
Exactly.
Like if the defense kind of, you line up and they kind of,
they just run their plays and go in.
They're running the same kind of routes. I believe even with Rager, a lot of vertical routes on third down. Yeah. And I get it. A lot of the third downs were not.
We said crossers last week. The other thing is, where are the staples of any offense? Crossers, getting your tight end involved, which Greg brought up. The things that we were expecting to see this season, we've rarely seen it. That's the thing I'm so surprised about it. And you can't use the lack of an offseason as an excuse because every team's going through this.
Right. How did you feel about Lane Johnson?
I thought Lane played a good game. I thought Lane had a solid game last week. Both he and Jason Peters. I thought that both of them had solid games. I thought that most of the mistakes came from the interior of that offensive line. Right. You know, when you're looking at what happened with the guards, I mean, sometimes, like we said earlier, when they ran a 3-man game, and then now you had that looper coming around. Matt Pryor was late coming back because Kelsey didn't knock him back, or they got confused on what's going on. You had one particular play where it was supposed to be a zone protection going left, but then this is so silly, man. You have a one technique. Okay, so I'm the center, and we're going this way. All right, you have a one technique over Kelsey to the right, a 3 technique to the left that's outside. So if this is the guard, you have a 3 technique out here on him. So now they're running a zone pass that has to go to the left. Kelsey abandons the A gap. So this is the A gap here. Kelsey hauls butt to go take the 3 technique, opens up this A gap. Like the defense, the 1 technique isn't going to get in his hip. Got in his hip, then now that's one of the 12 quarterback hits that was given up because he opened this A gap, which made it extremely hard for Matt Pryor to get in there and fit it up. So a lot of people will look at it and be like, well, dang, Matt Pryor, you should have got down there. But really, Kelsey abandoned the A gap, which made it extremely hard for him to handle.
Do you think he plays a little bit different, like upstairs, what's going through his head is different when they're going up against a 3-4 team especially?
Yeah, anytime the verdict is out, if you put an athletic defensive tackle over Kelsey, you know that it's going to, the ball ain't no telling how he's going to snap it. You know, if he has to get out there and you have to go do some of those zone stuff, and you have to cause him to all the qualities that everybody loves. Oh, look at Kelsey, get out there and run. Right. All right, well, there's a price that comes with that. Because now if he has to get out there and try to go do a zone or something like that and has to take on this technique, sometimes he abandons the A gap and it makes it extremely hard for the backside guys. So, you know, that's just one of the couple things that you look at when you come out of a game with 3 sacks, 12 quarterback hits. Right now, they have 35 sacks, 89 quarterback hits in 8 games. Well, 9 games. Is 9 games? 9 games. 35 sacks. They only gave up 37 sacks last year with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, you know, we detailed it in our last pregame show. He's one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL.
And hit 89 quarterback hits.
It's on pace for getting sacked over 60 times.
That's crazy.
Can't happen.
What, in your mind, is the common bond or thread with those snap issues that he was having?
Well, I talked to Jamal Jackson about that, and you know, just being a center because I've never had to snap. He was saying that when you snap the ball, you want your forearm to kind of hit your thigh, and then you come back. But if you don't, if you let the ball go too quick, then now the ball is going to be all over the place because you're trying to hurry up and get your offhand up. You know, so you have your offhand, this is just not going to be the ball. So you have your offhand up, but you want to get that other hand back up. So that snap hand, if you don't let that hand hit the thigh, then now the ball, you're letting the ball go too early, and it's going to be all over the place. So you see that a lot of times with Kelsey. If he has an athletic defensive tackle or something that he has to do, then now he lets the ball go a little too quick, and it comes in low and it comes in hot. And if you're not ready for it, there you go, fumble snap.
Now, you know you're about to become an internet meme for your hand usage.
Hey, man, I mean, you know,
I'm not sure what that is.
We're talking snap motion. Get your mind out of
Yeah,
the gutter.
exactly. I don't know what you were talking about.
One more Jamal reference, and he's going to get some royalties from this.
I will say, if we could speak to a positive from last week,
Yeah.
are we allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay. I thought Miles Sanders ran the best he has all season,
Yeah.
far and away. I thought that he was much more decisive and confident overall. I thought he got downhill quicker. I thought he ran like a true feature back, the kind of back that you knew that, hey, if you gave him the ball, he was going to get 4 or 5 yards,
Right.
as opposed to looking for something bigger. Because the thing about big play backs, and Sanders certainly has that ability, you know, and I heard an interesting analogy watching the Alabama game last night from the Alabama running back coach. He didn't say it, but the announcer said they were talking about Najee Harris, the Alabama back, when he first got there, because he was the #1 recruited back in the country, and obviously he ran for, you know, a zillion yards in high school. And the analogy was that you have to learn how to run, you know, run for average or hit for average before you hit for power.
Okay.
Using a baseball analogy.
Yeah, sure.
And the key running the football is you've got to understand that you have to get 3, 4, 5 yards, and not every run is not a 20-yard gain.
Right.
And I thought Sanders last week had a real good feel for hitting it up and getting the yards, and then the bigger runs just naturally, organically develop.
I believe that was a storyline with LaShawn McCoy earlier in his career.
Yeah.
He always wanted to hit the home run, right? Always looking for the big play, and he would dance around the hole a little bit, and then he gradually learned to follow the blocks, and that the big plays would come from that. And for Miles to have really done it this early in his career, I think speaks to his potential in this offense and what he can be. You know,
I think, look, we started to see some, and Trey knows this, we started to see some of the run game principles last week, concepts that we saw more of years ago. The wham trap, which was a foundation of what they did in 2017, 2018. You know, we saw that. I think Sanders had 2 10-plus yard runs out of that wham trap concept. And, you know, so hopefully the run game, and today with our meteorologist here telling us about the weather, you know, I think they're going to need to run the ball.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say wham trap, for people, what you're often referring to is either a tight end or maybe even a
tight
tackle
end comes in,
coming across the line of scrimmage.
And blocks usually a one technique.
The edge,
and then a guard sort of folds around and blocks the 3 techniques so that other offensive linemen can immediately get to the second level.
Right. Right. Hey, I'm not going to kill you. We have a whole segment dedicated to the running game. I have to delete it now because you just covered it all. This is trench
Good
talk.
stuff.
But that's okay. We branch out.
You know?
We branch out and do that. I wanted to get back to you, Trey, with Jason Kelsey, and just the idea, because there have been times this year where you've either questioned a blocking design, right? We talked about the snaps, calling out the right mic. I mean, do you feel like you're seeing a different player than we've seen for the last few years? Is it,
no,
or is he just trying to hold together a line with all this?
It's been the same throughout the years. I mean, it's just, but everybody doesn't. No one knows what they're looking at when they watch offensive line protection and everything that's going. This is something that this has been going on for a while. You know, I mean, you had last year against Dallas, you had a nickel blitz come in. I mean, they ignore the rules of protection too many times. And it's going to happen. That's why you're sitting there. They always lead the league in sacks and quarterback hits throughout the years. They haven't had a quarterback make it through the season only once.
That's not good.
That's not good.
That's very bad.
You only had one quarterback make it through the entire season one time.
The interesting about Wentz last season, Jeff, he was not listed on the injury report once. But how does the season end?
Right.
What we knew was an illegal hit. Mike Pereira told me that when I asked him at the Super Bowl for us. But
Well, he hasn't been. Has he been on the injury report this year?
No. He's tough as he is.
Yeah,
tough.
he's tough.
Oh no, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
We can say what we want about
Yeah.
other things. He is tough.
Yeah, he's tough.
He is.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing as you guys have watched the Browns offense for the Eagles offensive line to become? I mean, obviously they don't
The
have
Browns
Myles
offense
Garrett.
or the Browns defense?
Say that again.
What do you want? What did you say?
Browns defense.
For the Eagles offensive line, what's the number one thing they have to do well today, especially without Myles Garrett being there?
You're going to still protect, man. I mean, you know, because you're going to have to pass it at some point. You're not going to go out there. This isn't high school football where you go out there and have 50 runs called. That's not happening. I mean, you know, you're going to pass the ball. So they still have to protect. I mean, you know, this just when you look at just their stat numbers, you haven't had a 0-sack game since the Rams. Other than that, it's all been the lowest amount of sacks that you're giving up in the game is 3. And I mean, you've had double-digit sacks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Out of the 10 games that you played, you've had 7 double-digit quarterback hits.
Trey, how many of those, I know there's no way to know that by the number, but are there times when you go, you know what, Wentz has got to get rid of the football? Because the Browns told me speaking to someone who did advance on the Eagles, said that, look, Wentz does not throw with anticipation anymore. That's lost in his game. He does take too much contact, but you're the one who's watching it. How much of it is on him and how much is on the offense?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is on. Some of it is on him. Some of it is on Carson that he needs to get the ball out of your hands. Get the ball out of your hands, receivers. But the receivers need to be open though. So I mean, you know,
another part of it. It's all tied together. That's a great point. It's all tied together, Jeff.
Well, all right, we're going to flip sides soon and talk about the Browns in the trenches and their defensive front without Myles Garrett. First, if you are enjoying today's show, the bright lights, the fancy graphics, and the quality sound, it's all thanks to the team at Rebel Hill Productions. Reach out to Zach and Jim today at Rebel Hill for a free consultation to discuss your digital strategy and content needs at info@rebelhillconsulting.com or call 215-668-8498. That is Zach and Jim at Rebel Hill. Their information is info@rebelhillconsulting.com, 215-668-8498. Take it from us. They do an incredible job. All right, let's talk about the Browns and their defensive front without Myles Garrett. Obviously, this guy is a huge weapon. He's the defensive year of the candidate.
I mean, Trey could talk about it better than I, but I think this guy is really special.
He's serious.
Really
He's nice.
special.
Is he, Greg, you've seen every team this season. Is there a defensive end who's playing better than he this season?
I don't think there's a defensive end that's more physically gifted than he has, given his size and his movement. He sometimes has pass rushes where I think he looks like a running back. The way he can stick his foot in the ground and change direction and then bend. I mean, we're not talking about a 240-pound speed edge rush type guy. We're talking about a 275-pound defensive end who's 6'4", 6'5". I mean, Trey, you can please jump in here. You can talk about it better than I can.
Yeah. No, he's good. I mean, you know, because he can come in, he's going to make you, he'll give you that nice little come in, show hands flash, make an offensive lineman sit there. Now he can take the edge, bend in the corner. He can take you back inside, so he knows that once you get your shoulders turned, he can kind of come work back inside on you. So he's a crafty defensive end. He's what you want to see as a defensive end. Has a plan of attack. And then, you know, because when you look at defensive end and when you study, because I like teaching pass rush and I like working pass rush. For me, when you talk about pass rush, it's all about you want to force a reaction, then have a plan. So if you know that, all right, if I have an offensive lineman that's a puncher, then I want to know, okay, does he like to punch on his third step? And if he likes to punch on his third kick, then now I want my stance to kind of mirror what I want to do. I want to force a reaction for him and then have a plan for it. Because that's the whole point of for pass rush. As an offensive lineman, you're constantly out there just, all right, you're getting to your spot, you're shooting your hands, you're kind of mirroring what's going on. But as a rusher, I want to force a reaction and have a plan for it. And that's what he's doing. He's having a good plan for what he's doing.
He's really good. I love the way Trey just spoke about that. I think Garrett is really good at forcing a reaction.
Yeah, he's going to force a reaction.
He forces a reaction.
Nice. Well,
he's a home wrecker.
What is the Browns' plan, Adam, for your understanding?
Yes, Claiborne. I was told Claiborne will definitely start. Adrian Claiborne, the veteran DN who had those 6 sacks against the Cowboys when he's with the Falcons.
That's when
it's another story another time. This is when coaches don't get along and they decided not to help, and it's another story for another time. And Porter Gustin, who is an undrafted free agent out of USC, I know Greg saw tape of him last year. He will back him up, and that's it. They don't have a lot of depth.
Though, even when Garrett was there, Gustin plays snaps.
Coaches love him because he's a hard worker. He's kind of like their Joe Osman, a guy that's kind of worked his way, lunch pail guy who coaches love because he works really hard.
Is he you think he'll see mostly over right tackle over Lane Johnson, or do they move him around?
Well, when Garrett was there, Garrett and Vernon would play each side. They'd move around.
Right.
So I assume they'll do the same thing.
Well, Claiborne can't because of his issue. His issue, he's got the nerve issue that he can't. He only play one side.
Olivier Vernon used to be a fairly good pass rusher in this league. He doesn't have that many sacks
but he's still a good.
this year.
I don't think he's a bad player.
No, I'm asking what you see now.
I mean, he's a guy you can't just say, oh, we don't have to worry because Garrett is out.
Right.
Vernon does have traits to rush the quarterback.
There's a reason why he became the highest paid DN in NFL history. He was really good at one point, but he's had a lot of injuries. They call him a flash player. Not the most consistent guy, but he's on the back nine of his career.
But he can rush and he can wreck plays.
All right, we have a couple of questions from our viewers on YouTube that I wanted to get to. Some we've already answered. One comes from Carl Stevenson. I'm going to pose this to you, Trey, because I think it's an interesting. It's more about what goes through a guy's mind, right? He asks about Jalen Reagor, and if we're expecting to see something different out of Jalen today because of the anger that he apparently not the anger, but the frustration maybe over the Justin Jefferson comparisons. I mean, do Do players use that as fuel when they get asked about that stuff throughout the week?
I think it could be frustrating, you know, especially when you because I mean you're constantly getting compared by who you were brought in, especially in this social media age where it's all in your face, and he's already canceled his account, and I know he's been asked about it a couple times, and he showed some frustration to it, and I think guys can kind of use that as fuel to kind of go out and perform, but at the end of the day, you can, you know. What, you going to take the ball from the quarterback?
Right.
Right. At the end of the day, he's got to get the ball.
Everything he's doing is depending on if the quarterback can get the ball to him. So, you know.
I have an unpopular take, I think, about deleting your social media account, whereas people see that as a weakness. I actually think it's the ultimate sign of strength. I think to be able to avoid that BS and I can't stand some of that. I mean, I sound like a hypocrite. We're on social media now. Our show is on it. I mean, we use it for business purposes, but it can be such a kind of a cauldron of toxicity.
Polarizing.
That when a guy wants to just get away from it and clear his mind, I give kudos to that. I don't think it's a sign of like turtling up at all. I think it's a sign of focusing on what you need to focus.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. Then it does keep you focused on, just silence the outside noise. That's one of the things that Coach Reed was always harping on us. Just make sure, hey man, just make your world as small as you can so you can stay focused on the task at hand.
All right, another question from Applied Science. Again, you can leave your questions for any of us or your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the chat box. If the Eagles come out flat today, will there be changes going forward? And I think we've talked about this, Adam.
Historically,
I don't know
Pearson
what they
doesn't
could
make
do.
a lot of them, other than changing the quarterback, which is highly unlikely to happen. They want to see this out with Wentz, obviously, being what he's paid, and he's their guy, but they do have Hurts. He's a second-round pick. I mean, guard play at the other guard position. If you want to, if one guy, whoever starts doesn't play, well, you put the other guy in. Receivers, you have a bunch of young guys who've got to play. I don't see much you can do right now. The linebackers are who you have.
I mean, they could take the point of view, and again, we know that it's always easy to speak negatively about a team when they're playing poorly. That's easy. But they could take the approach that the offensive line has been shuffled all season, as we've discussed, that the receiving core that they anticipated putting out there is just starting to round into form, theoretically, and that now is the time to really start to look at things. And that what's happened prior, not that we're defending it or saying, hey, it's okay that you're 3-5-1, but that, hey, now the team that they anticipated being on the field is starting to be on the field.
You guys think, based on what you heard from Doug Peterson this week and how he was in the press conferences, that he might have taken a little bit more of a hands-on, aggressive approach this week, especially if Press Taylor may not have been available for all the practices?
I mean, let's put it this way. A lot of the things we had heard in the offseason, really, we didn't even talk about the defense. It's unbelievable. We're over and out. I know, it's crazy, but particularly in offense, because there was so much hope. We can no longer say this offense is slow, because actually they're pretty fast in terms of talent, available talent. And Greg brought it up. Their line, 4 out of the 5 guys are back. Okay. Yes, you don't have Ertz, but Goddard is back. He's healthy. Sanders is back. He's healthy. Greg talked about how good he looked, and that hasn't been lost in other teams who watch the tape. They all said he looked good. So there's really no reason, if the weather holds up, that they can't move the football. The Browns are not a great defense. And you take Garrett out of there, the best defensive player, probably the best player. There's going to be opportunity here if they can block. But that's the issue with this football team. There seems to be an issue every week with this team.
Yes,
but you've got everyone back, mostly everyone back. This could be the week. Maybe they can get something done.
Remember how 2017 it was like a different hero every week, and this it feels like a different zero every week.
They were scoring over 30 points every game.
Every game.
Yeah.
It was and controlling time of possession. That was something Doug did well in 16, 17, and 18. Not so much.
I would tell you, there are a lot of talented coaches on the staff, but I think if we're being honest here, the coaching was about as good as we ever seen in this town. Even when Andy had his great group here. It's just sometimes you get lucky. Everybody works together. You bring in a lot of new faces in here from different places. They don't have it going on yet. They got to get it together right now. Yeah,
real quick before we move on, as we close out Trench Talk, I neglected to mention that the Browns actually have a very good offensive line themselves.
Yeah,
so their
good.
interior of the offensive line is pretty decent.
This Wyatt Teller.
You could argue he's one of the best guards in the league this year.
Wyatt Teller was with the Bills. I remember talking to a Bills source who said.
He was a 4th or 5th round pick. He was drafted.
Wyatt Teller was an underachiever of the Bills. So much so they said, you know what? It's just not happening here. One Bills source said he's feast or famine. Either he's going to be a terrific player or be a journeyman and never make it. And right now, as Greg's alluding to, because he's seen the tape,
And he missed about 4 games or so.
he has a
whatever.
calf strain, and unfortunately, he went back on the injury report.
Right. He's questionable today.
Yeah, he's a game day decision. They'll see how he looks.
He's actually changed their run game a little bit because Kevin Stefanski his background is outside zone, which they still feature.
They
no
call it the
question.
wide zone, yeah.
No question. Do they call it wide zone?
They call it,
yeah.
I asked
Everybody-
Kevin that.
You know,
He
I've
calls
had
it
this
the wide zone,
conversation
yeah.
with O-line coaches, and you've probably done it too. You know, they all have different names. You know, you have inside zone, mid zone, outside zone, wide zone.
From Kubiak,
It
yeah.
just depends on what coach wants to call it what.
Right. Same, it's all the same thing.
It's all the same. Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, because of Teller, who's an outstanding pulling guard, they've added a lot more gap scheme concepts to their run game this year because Teller is a really good puller. And by the way, I don't know whether he'll play like you said, but when he plays, you could argue their guard duo of Teller and Joel Bitonio is a top 5 guard duo in the league.
Wow. All right. Just one more thing the Eagles have to worry about today. We're going to move on to our Manscaped Man of the Game segment in a minute. First, be sure to check out our friends at Philadelphia Sports Nation. That's PHLSportsNation.com to get all of your Philadelphia sports news. They're covering the Eagles, the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, and the Union like nobody else. Their goal is to enhance the fan experience with all of their great content and coverage. So check them out on social media at PHL Sports Nation and go to their website, PHLSportsNation.com. And who's ready?
Oh,
the
yeah.
Manscaped
Oh, yeah.
Man of the Game.
I've changed mine 3 times because of this weather. And who do you trust on the offense, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or defense.
I would assume Tropical Storm Kaplan would have his pick changed based on the weather.
Yes, I did.
True to form.
It's got to be Miles Sanders. This has got to be a Miles Sanders game. I like when Cosell said a guy looked good last week. Take that to the bank. He ought to get the ball more this week. This has got to be a Miles Sanders game. It's got to start with him. Help your quarterback out. I don't know how easy it will be to throw a screen. It would be nice if they actually completed one. What has happened to the screen game in Philadelphia?
No, they had a screen. What was it against Dallas, Trey? I remember you made a big deal about it. It actually netted
It was breaking news.
positive
Yes. I put that
yards.
on
It felt
with
great.
Boston Scott.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well,
Oh,
let's just walk off to the sunset. That's it. We got our
Right,
screen,
right.
you know?
Right.
I'm very surprised. Any idea in your mind on why
Timing.
they just timing?
Yeah, the timing of it. Screening is a timing
Is it with
thing.
offensive linemen too?
Yeah, it's all about the timing.
I thought.
You have to actually block it. You have to actually go into it like you're trying to block protection, then you give up the loss. You can't just like, all right, we're going to Olay, and then now, the defensive linemen, they're crafty enough where they say, oh, you just let me get through clear. All right, where's the running back? And then there you go, it's crushed.
Because, Trey knows this, offensive line, it's not just, hey, let's run out there and see what's out there.
Right.
You have specific guys you're supposed to. Now, it's not a guy in terms of a number. It's who shows up as the alley player, who shows up as this, But guys have specific guys they're supposed to block.
So let's say if we're on the right hash, okay? So if we're on the right hash, and I know we got to hurry up, get through.
No.
If we have the right
plenty of
hash,
time.
usually you're going to have 3 guys that's going to get out, all
Yep.
right? You're going to have the left guard, center, and right guard that are going to get out, all right? So say if we're on the right hash and we're running a screen to the left, all right? So now you want the first guy, the left guard, he needs to turn at the top of the numbers. All right, so as soon as he sees numbers, he needs to turn. So he's going to be your wide guy. Then the center is going to he's going to be in between the hash and the numbers. So then now,
Right.
and then your third guy, who's going to be the right guard, he's going to check for anything that's chasing, and then now he's going to turn on the hash, and then that's your lane. So as you push over, then it's on the top middle of the numbers. If you get to the left hash, then it's on the outside of the numbers. So
it's all
you
synchronized.
have your different landmarks that you need
Yep.
to reach to make that screen successful.
Is it possible, is it theoretical or feasible that knowing that Seumalo is back and that he was already in practice last week, didn't play, but this is his second week that he's completed of practice, that with 4 of their 5 offensive line back, they should be able to have that kind of rhythm and chemistry?
Yeah, hopefully,
Well,
but you still have to block the protection as well. So
Right.
yeah, you have those lanes, but you still have to block the protection for at least 2 seconds. So it's always all right, 1001, 1002. All right, now you go.
Right.
You can't just be like, all right, 1001, let it go. Then now they find the running back and it's blown up. Or if you wait too long, then now that blows it up as well because now you didn't make it to your lanes, and then now everybody's coming up and killing it.
All right, Adam, your Manscaped Man of the Game was Miles Sanders. Greg, who is your Manscaped Man of the Game?
Well, I'm going to pick a running back, but it's going to be a Browns running back. I'm going to pick Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
I struggled, like I said earlier in the show, with what I saw from the Eagles linebackers last week in the run game. And I think the Browns, regardless of weather, want to run the football. And I think Nick Chubb is a top 5 back in this league.
Sure.
So I'm going to go with Nick
What do you
Chubb.
like about him, by the way, Greg? What does he do that,
Well,
that
first of all,
stands out?
he is big. You know, you lose sight of that sometimes.
Yeah.
He's a 225-pound man, and he is explosive. He's short area explosive. He's naturally powerful. He's more of a slasher and a darter than he is a stop and start change of direction back. But there's kind of a deceptive elusiveness to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not necessarily, like I said, going to stick that foot in the ground and you know, wiggle. You know, but he's got an elusiveness that's kind of deceptive. I think he's a really, really good runner.
I was, you know, last year I thought he showed that he was
He
one
can
of the
run
best
away
running
from
backs
people
in the
too.
league.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of big runs,
Yeah.
you're right.
And
which
then they
is
went and added Kareem Hunt, and
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. But now you see, although they didn't have this staff or this offense in last year.
John Dorsey was the one who made it because he
Right.
had him in Kansas City. But man, what a tandem! You
Oh.
haven't seen anyone like this, right?
No, because they're both feature backs.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to go back to like when San Diego had, when they were the Chargers at the time. They had who's the guy? Michael Turner and
Means?
somebody
Was
else.
Natron Means there?
It was Mike Turner and somebody else, I think.
Michael
it was
Turner
like a
from
1-2.
Illinois. Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
Sproles maybe? They were using Turner and Sproles. I forget, but they had a very lethal running back combo where they were hitting you with all sorts of ways.
Michael
And
Turner.
It kind of
But
reminds
these
me
guys,
of this.
and they want to run the football.
Yeah.
You're going to see.
That's their foundation by
You're
far.
going to see a lot of, because Janovich is out, you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end personnel and 3 tight end personnel.
Wow, that's big up front.
Harrison Bryant. Watch
The
him
rookie,
today.
the rookie tight end. So you had a running back. You have a running back. I also picked a running back as my Manscaped of the man of the game, and it's not the same guys you picked. I picked Kareem Hunt. The reason I picked Kareem Hunt is because not only is he a very good runner,
He's a good
but he
receiver,
is
yeah.
their receiving
Yeah.
running back. And the way we've seen guys be able to torch the Eagles and this linebacker crew out of the backfield, I'm worried that he may not have as many yards as Chubb, but he might have the bigger splash plays through the air with the mismatches that he creates. So that's it's 3
one.
Manscaped men of the game and 3 running backs. Trey, I'm guessing you didn't go running back.
No, I didn't go running back. I
You
went
didn't go
Doug
offensive
Peterson.
line.
I went Doug Peterson. My
Wow.
Manscaped man of the game has to be Doug Peterson. I mean, you know, with everything that's going on, he needs to get this team under control. I mean, you know, he's going to have to come with some creativity with his plays. You know, now that you're missing Press Taylor, you know, how are you going to handle working with Carson on the sideline if there is a mistake that happens throughout the game? So to me, you know, just making sure that this team doesn't come out flat, it's going to have to be on Doug Peterson.
All right, Doug Peterson and 3 running backs under the microscope today. Also under the microscope, Trey, why don't you tell them about Manscaped?
You don't need a microscope for me.
I'm not sure what that means. I don't know. What does that mean? Can you explain that?
That was my best joke of the season.
That microscope needed
Oh my
help.
gosh.
All right.
Okay.
Autumn is in the air, and Manscaped is here to ensure you don't carve your pumpkins while grooming. By pumpkins, we actually mean your boys downstairs. In fact, Manscaped is on a mission to change the way you approach caring for your undercarriage. And great news, they've just released their products in the UK, Canada, and Australia, the great down under. You can't forget about the best trimmer for your BBB, butt, balls, and body. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer offers a replaceable ceramic blade with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce grooming accidents. Their new Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer uses the same skin-safe technology when you're trimming those delicate nose hairs of yours. The Crop Care Kit includes the Crop Preserver, ball deodorant. Everyone knows pumpkin spice lattes and ball deodorant go hand in hand. The Crop Care Kit also includes the Crop Cleanser Body Wash, a full body wash that you can also use on your hair. Crop Mop Ball Wipes. You never know when an opportunity strikes, so you should always be prepared. Plus, you don't want to stink when you're sitting around that Thanksgiving dinner coming up. If you suffer from stank foot and stand on your feet all day, then I have a perfect product for you, the Foot Duster. Foot deodorant that's also made with cooling tea tree oil that offers a pleasant experience for the stankest of feet and allows you to take your shoes off with confidence. The Manscaped Refined Cologne is a cost-effective way to smell clean and fresh for your date. The Crop Cleanser Hair and Body Wash is designed with aloe vera and sea salt to leave your skin clean, fresh, moisturized, and reinvigorated. These formulations are all vegan, cruelty-free, dye-free, sulfate-free, and paraben-free, so you know your manhood is in good hands. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use at manscaped.com when you use promo code TRADE, T-R-A. Again, that's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code TRADE, T-R-A. Make your balls a priority this fall. They will thank you.
Yes, they will, and we thank you, Trey, for that wonderful Manscaped. By the way, what do we got over there? Is that some lip balm? Like,
Yes, it is a lip balm.
okay, you have like the desk that I had in high. You got like all sorts of things all over.
I have a brew, which is the peach cobbler. Which is
Nice.
my cup is empty, so I'm pretty sure that the
Here,
show
Chris
is almost
Allen.
over.
Bartender,
doing a great
peach
job.
cobbler,
I
over here.
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah, I would like another peach cobbler. But yeah.
Nice.
All right, your cup has runneth empty, but hopefully you've got a half hour left of talking about Eagles-Browns today. I did want to get into that running backs. We talked about them
Inactives.
a
The
little
Eagles
bit.
won them?
Yes, let's get inactives.
No surprise, Nate Sudfeld, Jason Huntley, Rudy Ford, who's hurt, Brett Toth. Now, this one is surprising. I didn't see this coming. Nate Herbig.
I guess he's not going to be the right
His
guard.
finger is still swollen.
He was not. He was not on the injury report. So, and Quez Watkins is
So
inactive.
wait,
so
who's going to be the third back today?
The third running
it'll
back
be
is
Elijah Holyfield.
Elijah Holyfield
Yes,
from
the
Georgia.
power back. Correct.
We'll get into that.
The real deal son.
This finger must be really an issue.
You would
It
think.
has to be more than swollen.
Has to be, because why in the world is he inactive?
Maybe like a
with their issues
sprain?
at the other guard spot.
I can't see a sprain, even a sprain. I mean, you know.
All right. So we're probably going to have
you
Matt
go.
Pryor at right guard. I mean, I would have
Who
to
else
think.
could
Yeah,
it be?
Matt Pryor
Or
should be the right guard.
Upetta, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see a Petta because I mean, even when they had to switch, when you had a chance to switch Nate over, you put Opeta in at left guard and put Nate in.
Right. So the backups today will be Jordan Mailata. It'll be Opeta. It'll be Jack Driscoll, I would think.
Yeah, Jack Driscoll. Yeah, because
Jack Driscoll.
he's your extra lineman.
Here are the inactives. Tajuan Taylor, who I thought might be active because he's really the only fast guy they have at receiver. Dontrell Hilliard, Robert Jackson's the corner. Moffitt, who's the safety. Tay Davis and Joe Jackson. That's it. That's really it.
All right. So the Browns. Wait. So
no-
what about the fullback that they use? Is he
Well,
active?
Janovic
definitely out.
is on the COVID list, so he cannot be
right.
activated today.
So they're probably. I would think they don't have a backup fullback that you'll see more, as Greg was alluding to. Maybe three tight ends,
Oh,
tight
yeah.
end
Three tight
formations,
Well,
and absence.
12 and 13 for sure.
12 and 13 personnel. All right. Usually we spend a segment talking about the other team's quarterback because every team seems to have an upper echelon quarterback, and that's where the offense flows through. But as we've mentioned, the Browns are a different kind of team. Everything's going to go through their two running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And just to educate people on the numbers here, it's pretty astonishing what they've done already. They've already combined for over 1,094 rushing yards, and together they average 5.2 yards.
Well, and plus Chubb missed 5
carry.
games.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about that. It's
That's
unbelievable.
right. Chubb missed 5 games, and that's what they've done. Kareem Hunt is the NFL's 7th leading rusher, and Chubb, as you mentioned, he's second in the NFL, averaging 6.1 yards per carry. I guess the really neat thing about them, if you're just objectively looking at it, is that they're two different guys. They're very good, but they complement each other really well with what they do. You mentioned, Chubb can run between the tackles, can run outside, and Hunt can cause matchups in the
But Hunt can also
game.
run between the tackles.
Right. So, I mean, it's almost like you wonder, do you see a rhythm, Greg, in how they're used as far as the rotation?
No, I don't. I'm sure there is, but I don't. I don't know what that is. But I do think it's worth talking about the pass game
Okay.
because the pass game for them at this point, does work off the run game, which I think if you want to be a great team, at some point they have to be able to work independently. But right now the pass game works off the run game, and I think that was a really smart. I think that the hiring of Stefanski to me was a really smart choice because you needed to get Baker Mayfield settled into a system where it's defined, and when your pass game essentially works off your run game, and there's a ton of play action and play action boot, designed movement off play action, then the reads tend to be far more defined, and therefore the throws are more defined. And after the season Baker Mayfield had a year ago, they needed to get into that kind of system so he could be settled down mentally.
Yeah. I like to say you got to crawl before you walk.
Right.
And you used the analogy on running backs before. You got to be a hitter for average
Before you hit for power, yeah.
Right.
The way that it was explained to me before the season started with the Browns is that they were going to limit the dropbacks, just like Stefanski did with Kirk Cousins. Roll the quarterback out right, roll him out left, make it easy. Don't give him a lot of volume. They shrank the playbook, as I was told, and it's working. I know he got off to a slow start. Remember, he had a rib injury. Talking about Baker Mayfield here, but he's played under control. They've had really bad weather challenges, obviously, but overall, he's playing within structure. That's what they wanted. They asked him to do way too much last year, the Freddie Kitchen staff.
Yeah, see, the thing is because of the weather issues, and they've had severe weather issues, his numbers aren't great.
Right.
But you can't fall asleep on Mayfield. Mayfield was a #1 pick. He's an excellent thrower of the football. Obviously, there are times he can be reckless, and play with a lack of discipline, and they're trying to control that with the structure of their offense. But he can throw the football now. It's not as if you're playing with a guy that you want to hide because he can't throw it. He can throw it.
You always liked the way he threw the football.
Oh, yeah.
Accuracy, like what kind of quarterback is he?
Well, at his best, he's got a really compact delivery. He's very quick on his drop. He sets up really well, and the ball comes out. And at his best, he's a precisely accurate passer.
Sure.
But as Adam said, and he's 100% right, they've wanted to limit the straight drop-back pass game. They've wanted to define things for him, and that's what
That's
play
great
action
coaching,
does.
by the way.
Yeah.
That's what you do to help a guy who came off a year like that.
You put your players in position to succeed. Getting back to the running game that helps Baker Mayfield, the numbers here are unbelievable. They are averaging 159 rushing yards per game. That's third in the league. 5.1 yards per carry, third in the league.
Without a quarterback who's a runner, by the way.
That was the point I was going to make. The two teams ahead of them, I believe, are Baltimore and another team that has a quarterback that has a lot of. They probably have the most rushing yards by running backs in the league, and it's probably not even close. Yeah. 77 rushing first downs. That's sixth, and third in the league with 13 runs of 20 or more yards.
I meant to look
today.
up, and I didn't, so my bad. But I'm curious as to what their first down run percentage is. Not in terms of yards, but in terms of percentage. Like, do they run 70% of their first downs? Or I would bet it's pretty high.
Sure, I would think so. I mean, that's really. A lot of teams run to set up the pass, and they can just run to set up some other runs.
What's interesting, Jeff, about the Browns' offensive line is for years, if you study them, you go, very average. Now, you could say they're a top 5 line. Yeah. If everybody's healthy, they're really, really good. And when you can do that, and when your foundation is running the football, you've got the game plan to win. And look, who saw them this good? 6-3? We could talk about their schedule, this and that. They beat a good Colts team. I know it was earlier in the season. Trey,
still counts.
When you run the ball like this at such a high level, you could take this thing to the next level.
Absolutely, and they do a good job of working combination blocks, working up to the linebacker, which allows those running backs to get in there and get it. And like you said, these guys aren't looking for the home runs. They're running for average instead of running for power. They're taking whatever they can get and get on upfield, and then bam, there you go. And then now you run a couple play action passes off of it. And that's your offense. As long as you don't have to sit back there and drop back for those 7-step drops, that's where it starts to get a little difficult for an offensive line when you have to sit back for those 5-7-step drops. But if you can keep pounding the ball, and then now you have those play actions over the top of it, it makes your game a lot easier.
I don't know how much you've looked at him, but I think their rookie left tackle from Alabama played
nice.
really well. Yeah. And he was
Jedrick Wills.
Jedrick Wills. I thought, and again, there were 4 tackles who were taken in the first 11 or 15, whatever it was.
Becton,
I can't remember.
you had Andrew Thomas, and you had somebody else.
Backed into the Jets, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought, and again, I don't view myself as an offensive line connoisseur, but I've studied this for a long time. I liked Willis the most of the guys coming out, and I knew they were going to move him to left tackle, and I know Trey has spoken about that there are differences that have to be coached and worked on repetitively, but he was a phenomenal athlete, and he was aggressive and tenacious. And I think, there are times watching their tape, I'll just say, let me watch the set by Willis on this play, and I think he's done a really good job.
And by the way, what's interesting is, and they told me that right after the draft, and they talked about it before the draft, this was the kid the left tackle that Greg's talking about, this was their number 1 graded left tackle. Like some people teams always say that, but they were telling the truth. And sorry, Andrew Berry for his first draft, people question, was Andrew Berry ready to be a GM? Early 30s, he comes from analytics, we know he went to Harvard. How much does he really know, though? Personnel? He had a great draft. Too bad Grant Delpit, their second-round pick, got hurt.
Delpit got hurt, that's right.
And they planned on him being a major part of what they wanted to do defensively.
Sure. Well, the Eagles have spent all week long on defense planning for the combination of Hunt and Chubb. In fact, safety Rodney McLeod talked about it in his press conference earlier this week. Had some interesting things to say about the style of game that he expects it to be. So let's listen to what Eagles safety Rodney McLeod had to say.
I think we're a good running defense, first of all. So, it's going to be a battle. It's one of those games, man, where, pack an extra mouthpiece, extra shock pads. Those are 2 good running backs. And you know exactly what run plays are coming at you, and it's can you stop it? And they're dynamic. They run hard. We have to have population to the ball.
It's not going to take one man to get this done. Everybody's going to have to play their part, and we're going to have to get a lot of hats to the ball, man, to get those 2 running backs on the ground. They're playing great. Their O-line is getting great push. So that's our focus this week, is controlling the run game and stopping Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb.
All right, that was Eagles veteran safety Rodney McLeod, who's had a very good year for the Eagles defense, talking about it's going to be a pack your mouthpiece type of
Pack
game.
your hard hat.
What's it going to be, Adam?
Pack your hard hat.
No.
Richard in the Soil
Yeah.
game? Yes.
Oh, there you go.
and
Richard in the Soil.
see that, now, we're going to explain that one day, but this is a family show. You can translate the language there.
I'm not sure it's a family show. Do you want to go ahead and explain?
That was something I heard sitting with Greg Cosell and Ron Jaworski at NFL Films. They would know when Jack Del Rio was the head coach. They're running the football. It's a blank in the dirt game. They're putting the stake in the ground. We're running the football. And that's what it is.
And that's what the Browns do. So it's interesting because
good job. That was good.
Terrible segue, but either way.
They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the football.
That's what he said. You know what's coming. Can you stop it? And all I think about is the fact that the Eagles have really struggled at times this year against running backs that are not even in the echelon of Chubb and Hunt. I mean, they had some problems against Alfred Morris and Wayne Gallman last week against the Giants.
But there are keys here, Jeff. Guys, aren't there keys when you're running against a zone stretch? Aren't there just keys for linebackers? If you follow the keys for a change, can't you not stop them, but slow them down a little bit?
Yeah, I think, but what we don't do a good job of it, because we lose gap integrity when it comes to defense. You know, you start seeing guys where they get washed down too much. So if you have, if a D lineman has to have the B gap, then the linebacker has to have the C gap. And you start seeing sometimes where that B gap defender might get pushed all the way down to the A gap. So now you're expecting the linebacker to have to cover the C and B gap, or they just don't. They don't handle gap integrity well on our defense when it comes to stopping the run.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I believe it was last week, but Chubb had a touchdown run. It was not outside zone, because if it's true outside zone or wide stretch zone, you don't cut that back to the opposite side of the center. But if it's more mid-zone, what teams call it, which they run, by the way, then there are cutbacks. And the big thing here is that backside stack backer, okay, whether it's Singleton or Riley, okay, he has to be very careful about not over pursuing to the front side, because he is a cutback player.
Right.
And Chubb had a cutback touchdown last week where it was clear, because you want to make a play. You get caught up in, hey, it's flowing, I want to make a play. But that backside stack backer, if you're in a true 4-3 stack, we'll see how the Eagles line up depending on the personnel of the Browns, but that backside stacked linebacker cannot over pursue. He's a cutback player.
And I think one of the things that's hurting our run defense as well, too, you got Jalen Mills down there that you're trying to put him into the box to be like a Malcolm Jenkins.
He's not.
And he's not.
I had someone tell me he is so not a run game defender.
No.
It's not working.
I saw, when you did Tales from the Blind Side with Todd Hermans and Jamal Jackson, which comes out every Tuesday on the Inside the Birds platform, you specifically isolated the zone read touchdown from Daniel Jones and Jalen Mills. It wasn't an inability to get off a block. It almost seemed like a lack of desire to really want to mix it up there.
He just ran into the block. Okay, I'm blocked. Both those touchdowns that Daniel Jones ran, the other one that was called back, was ran at Jalen Mills, because they know that he's not going to come down there and either crush that whoever the blocker is or cut him to create a pileup. That's what you have to do at that position. If you're not going to be someone that wants to take on somebody, McLeod is back there running around smacking guys left and right.
Right.
Jalen Mills is not. I mean, for you to spend a full game and you only hit the ground 5 or 6 times as a safety, and they rush for 150 yards, and you only hit the ground 5 or 6 times. There was one time where he could have came in there and just hit the gap. It was a second or third down play. He could have came in and hit the gap, but instead he kind of just like, all right, you blocked me, all right. He was a little late getting into it, and it ended up being like a 2 or 3 yard, 4 yard gain, where if he would have just gone in there and hit the gap, been an aggressive safety, that probably could have been a 2 yard loss.
Go ahead.
When you run the wide 9, the first thing, because by the way, that's another thing. The Browns run some wide 9, by the way. Talking to them, I didn't know that until they told me. Your safety's got to fit the run game. They got to get in there and be nosy. And Mills doesn't do that, that's a problem.
But he's not, again.
I know he's not built like that, but you got to do it.
That's ultimately not his game.
But you got to do it when you're asked to do it.
Well, that's why I've always been wondering. Will Parks obviously had that injury. He was set back. I mean, he had to get reacclimated to the defense.
right.
But I always felt
I thought he'd be that guy.
he was going to
We
be
all
that
did.
guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the coaching staff clearly has a comfort level with Mills, or they're just not believing that Will knows every responsibility
Right.
yet.
I mean, he missed 6 weeks
for all the time he missed.
And by the way, Jim Schwartz was integral in bringing Parks here because he wanted him to be part of that.
Uh-huh.
The other thing that, and Greg's better to speak to this because he's watching the tape all the time, but the thing that I had heard they wanted Parks to do is cover the tight end.
Right.
And tight
I'd be
ends.
curious to see. And
I want to see what happens today.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens today because, again, we're not there. I don't know what happens. But to me, this strikes me as a Will Parks kind of game.
Sloppy weather, get him nosy in there.
A lot of tight ends.
Tight ends,
He's a more physical box player than Jalen Mills.
Right.
He can match up to tight ends man to man. He's a bigger guy. I don't know.
But
There's something about Will Parks they
it
seem not
seems
to like.
opposite.
Wait a minute. So are we saying that they're going to bench Jalen Mills?
No.
Oh,
but
okay,
that's the
all
thing.
right.
But use it. But use
No,
it.
but I'm just saying
Yeah,
that,
just use him a
that
little
he,
bit more.
he fits.
Okay.
This to me when they signed
A hard
Will
hat
Parks,
game.
They
Parks
don't
I
is bigger
envision Will
physically.
Parks.
Right.
He's this kind of player.
Yeah.
But they haven't played him. In other
No,
words,
they
like
haven't.
the Giants
so
last week gave them
there's
opportunities
something going
to do
on there that
Yeah.
obviously I don't know about because
Right.
I'm not in the building.
Right.
But this is to me what Will Parks theoretically is about.
When I feel like this game and what you're saying about Jalen Mills, and which stood out on tape, I mean, you showed it really well. I can't help but think of a couple of years ago when the Eagles went down to New Orleans to play the Saints, and they got lit up. And after Peter King had this column out, and he had spent the week with Sean Payton, and he was showing Peter King, see this guy Sidney Jones? We know he doesn't tackle very well. We know they're trying to force feed him in the slot. So they designed a lot of runs to go right in that direction.
Yes.
And from the first play, they just steamrolled the Eagles. And you wonder if this is kind of the buzzsaw that the Eagles defense is walking into now.
Well, they're going to have to
having
tackle
Jalen
today.
Mills there.
And it sounds silly to say because it is tackle football, but they're going to have to tackle today. I mean,
Yeah, you can't pull flags.
no.
You think they worked on that in practice this week, Joe? No. He says no. No, they didn't tackle in practice this week. Here's another thing I wonder. And Greg, I'll ask you about this first. Based on what you see, I mean, Baker Mayfield came out of Oklahoma as a very athletic quarterback. He can move, he can run.
He can move. He's not a high-level athlete.
True, I'm not trying to make him into Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm surprised is with such a strong running game, you wonder if they're watching what's gone on with the Eagles defense last year and they don't think to get that run going and then try to get Baker Mayfield involved a little bit in some keepers or zone
RPOs or stuff like that. Right, read option.
I know he's not the fastest
No,
guy
I
in the
mean,
world, but he
could you
has-
run a read option here and there? The Giants had a super cool read option on the Jones touchdown last week because the way they ran it, and I made a note of it. I'm going to go back to my notes here because I thought it was, and Trey, I know you saw this too, but I thought it was really a cool play because I said it almost had a pin-pull element to it because they had the tight end crossing formation as the puller and a slot receiver as sealing, pinning inside. It was almost like a read, a zone read with a pin-pull. It was a really cool concept. And teams are starting to add to the zone read concept. They block it differently, more creatively and innovatively. Could the Browns do something like that? Yeah, but I don't think that will be a foundation part of their
No, but
offense.
if
with
you
a couple
put one or
plays
two
But could it
plays
happen
in,
from
Yes.
the 12-yard line if they're going in? Absolutely.
Right. Mayfield is at least athletic enough to be
He's
able to
athletic
move.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you give you a couple yards.
He's a scrambler who tries to create space
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
football.
Especially if you know that you don't have anybody that's going to come downhill.
Right. Adam, when you've talked to people around the league about what they expect the Browns to do today and how the Browns can attack the Eagles, is it basically using that is the linebacker level?
Well, obviously the Eagles, we all know this, not a secret. The Eagles have the worst group of linebackers in the National Football League. The question, because of the lack of discipline, gap integrity, the Browns they're going to run what they run. They're absolutely positively a running team. They will never be a passing team with Stefanski based on the personnel they have. Plus, they lost OBJ.
Right.
It's just a matter of can the Eagles linebackers, Jeff, play with any discipline? And the word around the league is they've not.
Well, let me expand on that because when I watched it, I did see what you guys said about lack of gap integrity. I also felt that there were certain plays where they just did not get off the blocks, which is not necessarily gap integrity. It's just the brute force of the game, and if an offensive lineman's on you and you can't shed him in time and you get blocked out of the gap.
Funny you say that because before the so-called game changed and all these college linebackers are 218 pounds instead of 235 pounds. If you talk to defensive coaches who've been in the NFL for years, guys I've talked to, the first thing they talk about with linebackers, because they go back to the 90s and all, they say you've got to be able to play off blocks with your hands.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to control and displace. And I think to some degree that's a lost art now because college linebackers playing all these spread offenses don't do that.
Right.
And they're no longer 235, 240 pounds, with few exceptions, obviously. But they're not, the way the college game is played, with few exceptions, teams like Iowa, there's always teams that are still going to line up and run the football. But the overall college game, you're not getting linebackers that have to play in the box and use their hands.
And plus, the Eagles linebackers are undersized, severely undersized.
Yeah.
So this is a game, and I agree with the Will Parks note. Whatever size you have in the secondary and at linebacker, you got to use it. Now the Eagles, unfortunately, T.J. Edwards is their biggest linebacker. That's pretty much it.
No.
Well, that's where I wonder is if they have the personnel to be able to really match up against a Browns team that's going to take aim.
Because Duke Riley's
those
an
guys.
athlete.
Smaller,
He's not a physical in the box player.
He's like 225, 227.
Yeah, he's no one that's going to come downhill. No one
No.
that intimidates any of the offensive linemen. Like, and that's the thing, man. Anytime I played with one of the best safeties in the game, and probably like Jeremiah Trotter as a middle linebacker. I mean that's what you want to see as a middle linebacker.
But guys like that, and Trotter was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know better than I.
I mean, he's coming downhill.
Right, but those kinds of guys don't exist very
Almost
much
a
in
lost art,
college
right?
football.
Yeah, it's a lost art.
That's a lost art.
Yeah.
Those
Haven't
guys
anymore.
are not in college football.
No.
And if they are, people don't see them as viable players in today's NFL.
You know, it's funny because when I grew up in the game, it was, you can protect your linebackers. Are the Eagles protecting their linebackers anymore? I mean, can you do that?
Well, when you have
guys?
defensive linemen that shoot up the field that way, I mean, you almost
In this
don't.
wide nine, can you protect these linebackers?
Yeah.
Well,
It's a tough thing to do. They're small.
You got to be tough as a defensive lineman. Now you got to, can you split that double team? Now if you're not protecting your linebackers, then your defensive lineman got to be winning.
right.
So that's when you're looking at your Fletcher Coxes, your Jackson, Malik Jacksons,
your Hargraves.
because if they're able to get up to the linebackers and those combination blocks are able to get up to the linebackers and can block them cleanly, then your defensive tackle should be winning because then now that means that you're being blocked one-on-one pretty much.
And there's different philosophies in how you play an initial double team. Combo type block is a lot of coaches coach it that if you're at the linebacker level, if you see a double team, you should immediately attack to release the double team.
Yes.
And then the defensive lineman has to win that because he's now being released from the double team, and then he's got to win.
All right, real quick before we get into our last segment of predictions, I did want to flip the script. We talked a little bit.
My favorite thing.
Yes, your favorite, the predictions.
Yeah.
One of these days we'll be right.
We did talk about Miles Sanders and what he's bringing to
Right.
the Eagles running game. No Corey Clement today.
Yep.
It's weird because Doug acknowledged finally in his press conference this week that they are no longer an RBBC. They haven't been all year. And he even made the point to mention that in his 4 years, he's always wanted a 3-down running back like Miles Sanders. So you have to think, without Corey Clement especially, that maybe this is the game where Miles is really used, to full capacity. We've wondered where he is in the fourth quarter, and also as a receiver, he just has not lined up much ever since was it the Bengals game? I
Well,
believe.
the Bengals,
he
where
had
they
a
did line
chance?
him up and Wentz overthrew him.
Yeah.
But I would love to see him used more, split from the formation, because I think he's a good receiver.
Isn't this the type of defense? I mean, their safeties are more box safeties. I mean, don't you think you can get him matched up in coverage against one of these guys?
You would think.
Yes, theoretically,
again,
right.
Yeah.
Theoretically, depending on the weather, we'll see how that holds up. But
Right.
yeah, Sanders has been underutilized. I know he's missed time. He had the hamstring injury from the preseason. He missed game 1, then he missed the knee injury, but he looked totally healthy last week. Then he's also, by the way, off the injury report, which is a good thing.
Yeah, last year he averaged 32 receiving yards a game. This year, 17. So almost half of what he was able to do last year.
Lack of big plays in the past.
Well, this offense has not had big plays.
No.
Now this is where Doug, I think, has
Surprisingly.
got to kind of bring it up a little bit, and figure out the best way.
He's got a lot to
match
do
it.
today with so many coaches out.
Right.
And Jeremiah Washburn also is not there. He's still out on the COVID list there. So the coaches have a little bit extra responsibility this game, and they got to get it done. They got to win this game.
Emmanuel Asai from our YouTube watcher has asked, what will Elijah Holyfield's role be today, I have to think that would be
Short
the
yardage,
short yardage,
very
goal
little.
line.
Hey, look, listen.
Yeah, he may not play. I don't know if he'll play.
Clement had one snap last week, but he scored on it.
Yeah.
So short yardage is just about it. Give him a breather because Boston Scott's a nice story for them, but he's not a power back like Holyfield.
What do you think the long-term plan is for Jordan Howard? He's on the practice squad.
Yeah, well, he'll start working next week.
Who?
Jordan Howard. You know, he'll be on their practice squad officially next week, and they'll see what kind of shape he's in. Because remember, I'd said on our show last week that the reason why the Dolphins got rid of him is very simply Chan Gailey didn't want him. Did not fit his profile of what he wanted in a running back. And the crazy thing is he only had him for a couple weeks in training camp, Jeff. They're paying him $4.5 million this season. All he would use him in goal line situations. Can you believe that? $4.5 million.
Well, it's been a very odd career trajectory.
But he sure was used the right way here last year.
He was used differently here, and when he was healthy, they were able to get the most out of him. All right, let's move on to our prediction. As, of course, Week 10 football is in the books. It's time to review the tape and get ready for Week 11. There's no better place to get in on all the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. And to add to the excitement of Week 11, DraftKings Sportsbook's bringing back their can't-miss offer. If you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook yet, head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss this. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving all new users the chance to earn a sign-up bonus up to $1,000 when signing up using that promo code ITB. DraftKings Sportsbook has endless ways for you to bet, from live betting to betting on your favorite players. They do it all. They are safe, reliable, secure, making it easy for you to deposit your money and withdraw your money at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code ITB when you sign up and get up to $1,000. That's code ITB to get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Bonus comprised of a first deposit. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Well, if you want to place a little wager on this game, you go over to DraftKings Sportsbook right now, and you will find that the Eagles, as I checked last, were 3-point underdogs to the Browns. I can't remember the last time the Eagles were underdogs to the Browns. I know they don't play each other every year, but you'd probably have to go back a long time. As I just reload here, it is now down to 2.5. So I don't know what changed.
What's the over-under, by the way?
The over-under would be 45.5 there.
Where did it open? Did it open higher?
I believe it opened at 47. So I think it's gone down.
Yeah, so it's gone down, because of the weather.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see 40 points scored in this game. I'd be very surprised.
All right, well, we will start off our prediction segment with our best predictor. No, actually, we're going to start off with Greg. Trey's ahead of us all. So
I can't remember. I can't remember the score I gave you.
Would you like me to clear you in?
I know I picked the Browns.
Semaphore?
Did I go?
Oh, I got it. 23-17. You said.
Is that what I said?
You did. You said Browns 23, Eagles
reasonable.
17.
Reasonable.
Okay. I don't really have it. I think I've said a lot today. I don't really have much else to say.
Put it all out there.
Did you make that?
This is why, right? Everything you said today.
Approach.
Everything you said today would lead to a Browns
would lead to
Okay.
Well, wait, I want to be fair though. Did you make that selection before you learned that Myles Garrett was out of the game?
No.
Okay, so you still think Browns with Myles Garrett out?
No, I knew that he was out when I made that prediction.
Just making sure.
Got
just making sure. Because I think somebody might have changed their pick based on that. I won't point out who.
Impactful.
Trey Thomas, who's going to win?
Oh, I think Cleveland's going to win. I mean, you know what? I'm going to have to stop lying to people, man. Because, last week I told you that I felt like New York was going to win. And then as soon as I left, I went and put my money on New York that they were going to win this game. So,
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny.
Greg
and I are walking out. I'm like, man, I don't feel good about taking the Eagles this week. I just thought something about this game scares me.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop lying to the people. Be honest.
Be honest.
Got to be honest.
You got to be a man of the people.
Yeah, I got to be a man of the people. Yeah, I don't.
Manscaped man.
I don't see us winning.
There it is.
That's
right.
I don't see us.
All right, Brad. Do you even want to care about a score, or you just don't?
I don't care about a score.
No
I think we're going to lose.
All right, Browns win for Greg. Browns win for Trey. Adam?
I'm going to be the lone wolf. I've changed my pick. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win 20-17. I'm Mr. Low Score in the rain. It's got to be a Sanders game today. If it's not, they got even bigger problems than we could imagine.
And just to be clear, you picked the Browns to win on the Inside the Birds podcast.
Before we didn't know Garrett was not going to play that game.
That was a big influence in your decision.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I am going to also go for the Browns. I'm going to pick the Browns to win 24-17. to 20. So that's 3 picking the Browns and 1
All
guy
on the same score,
picking
too.
it. Yeah, we're all around the same.
Not a high-scoring game.
Same
No.
church. Maybe a little different pew, but all around the same. Any fantasy tip you got before we get out of here?
Sanders and Goddard. I agree with Greg. How much? And I understand it's raining, but short area. Get Goddard involved. What in the world has happened with this? I thought for sure coming out of the bye he would be featured, but this has got to be a Sanders game. I know people in fantasy are frustrated with Sanders. I get it. It's not him. It's the play calling. You need to get him the ball more, particularly in the pass game where he's been almost a big zero.
All right, there you go. Big thanks to our friends DraftKings, Goose Island, Rebel Hill Productions, Sky Motor Cars, everybody for watching. We will be back next Monday night for the Monday night
At
game
5
against
o'clock,
the Seahawks.
right?
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we look forward to that. Make sure you are subscribed to the Inside the Birds podcast on any podcast platform you listen to.
See
and also
our
on
interview with
YouTube.
Bill Polian?
Check out our
Oh,
interview
that's
with
phenomenal.
Bill Polian. It was really good stuff. For Greg Cassell, Trey Thomas, and Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. Everybody, enjoy the game.
Boom.